Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon in the second decan of Sagittarius. I hope that you're having a good Friday afternoon out there. If you are joining us, please let me know where you're stopping in from. Let me know that you're here, that you're listening, and tell me here in the chat box. I always love seeing where you're stopping in from all across the globe. Welcoming a few friends here today. Laura Edda is joining us from Vancouver, Washington. Tarja is here from Finland. Hello, Tarja. And we have more friends that are going to be stopping in here in a minute. Beth is coming. Oh, Beth says that there's no sound. Is that correct? Uh-oh. Can't hear me? Oh, boy. Are you sure? Let's figure this out. Can everybody hear me? Oh, your sound was off. Beth! You're giving me a heart attack here. Okay. Well, this is some of the challenges of live streaming on the internet. So no worries. Thanks, Beth. It's good if there's something going on technically and nobody can hear me, then we'll have to fix it. But I'm glad that you are all here today. See some more people stopping in here today. I'm going to welcome a few more friends. Jeannie is stopping in from Seoul, South Korea. Hello, friend. Nice to see you. Beth is here from... Where are you stopping in from, Beth? I can't remember where you're stopping in from. Sarah Renee Marshall is here from Portland. Nice to see you, friend. Yeah, and hanging on during this fixed intensity. It's been a wild ride, Sarah, I will admit. There's we're all going through it, and we'll try to break it down here today as well as we can, and see if we can give you some guidance through some of the challenges that we're going through as a collective. As I'm recording this, we're heading through the Mars at the bending of the nodes, which can be somewhat of a challenging time. And we're probably seeing a turning point in our lives, and we're building to this full moon in Sagittarius, which happens on the 3rd of June of 2023, which is a week from Saturday, depending on where your location is. And we'll kind of break it down. I'll show you some of my slides from the decans of Sagittarius, and we've got an I-Ching and an animal. The animal is actually very similar to the one, or is the same one as the new moon. So that energy obviously is something that we need to hear moving forward. So do me a huge favor. If you're just stopping in, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to my newsletter. If you are interested in the work that I'm doing here and you want to learn more, I did a series called the Decans of Gemini and the Decans of Sagittarius. I'll show you slides from at least one of those today. And right now, the Decans of Gemini is 20% off until the 21st of June. So you can find that on my website, spencermichaud.com, in the store link. So check that out if you want to learn more. I teach about tarot, astrology, mythology, fixed stars, pretty much just dumping all the knowledge that I had acquired up to that point into these 2.5 to 3 hour long focused videos, which are a little bit different than the live stream today where we're having a conversation and it's a little bit more free form. But those Decan webinars are pretty focused, and I'm pretty happy with how they turned out, and I hope that they are serving you well. All right. So let's see here. Beth's joining us from Ohio. Thanks, Beth. Callie at the beach is here from California. I remember last week I mistakenly did not divide that word up properly, and it was Kalia, the beach. It was funny. We had a moment. Beth is here from Madison. All right, so 1 week till moving day. Well, good luck, Beth, and I hope that your move goes smooth. Sarah says, I'm in your Leo rising club, and whew, it's felt like a never-ending Monday this week. Yeah, Beth, or Sarah, sorry, Sarah. It's been one of these days. We're already kind of things are going off the rails already today, but that's, like I said, that's how it goes. It has been a week over here too, and I'm pretty burnt out, to be 100% honest with you, but that's how it goes sometimes. And we're not always going to be at our best every single time that we need to show up and do our work. And we just keep on trucking. Steven says, happy Venus Day. Hello, Steven. Nice to see you. Kelly says, hello from Michigan. Had to check in and see if the beard is showing up. There's a little fuzz coming in, Kelly. Like there's a little scrubbly scruffle that's beginning. Yeah, the beard was unserendipitously chopped off. I'm gonna blame Mars in Cancer. Last week, I was trying to trim it, and I just razored a hole through it, and I was like, oh, it's got to go. But yeah, this week has been a lot. My partner and I have been dealing with one of our cars breaking down and trying to figure out how to move forward from a new vehicle. We got some changes in our living situation also that are taking some energy and effort, and the garden is still needing a lot of attention, and just a lot going on. It's Gemini season. Our attention's being split in a lot of different directions. We've got a lot of choices in front of us, and we're trying to figure out which things are a priority, which things we need to maybe put on the back burner, and which things we need to deal with now. And that's really some of the themes that we're going through with this this full moon that we're seeing coming up next week. So thank you all for being here today and choosing to spend your time with me. It's such a great supportive group, and I love all the wonderful comments that you're putting here in the video. If you'd like to support the work that I'm doing here today, there's a little $sign in the chat. It's called a super chat or a super sticker, and you can donate to the show, or you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com after the fact. Or if you want to get some more information about the deck and webinars, again, you can find that on my store at spencermichaud.com. Okay. Tarya says, I'm fine. The fixed signs are cadent in my chart. Sorry to hear it's been difficult. Yeah. You know, we all have different challenges based on different timing. And one really great way to look at the transits is seeing if they are in an angular house or not. And by angular houses, I mean 1st, 7th, 4th, and 10th. And you're going to feel those aspects a little bit more personally. And if you have a full moon or something like that in a cadent house or a succeeding house, it might not be as big of a deal. It might be just something that passes, and it isn't something that's earth-shattering or life-changing. It's not to say that that's going to be the case if it's in an angular house as well. It just may be that you feel it a little bit more personally. Lindsay is joining us from Las Vegas. Nice to see you, friend. Okay, so I'm going to start diving into it here. Yeah, we've got Steven's talking about angel cards today. I actually pulled an angel card, and I got the Archangel Shamuel. I think that's how you pronounce it, which is an interesting one. So if you've got information on that, Steven, throw it in the chat there. It advised me to hold some green fluorite today, so maybe that'll help the thoughts get from my brain to my mouth a little easier. So we are in the midst of Mars moving through this challenging kind of movement through the squaring of the nodes of the moon. And that is when a planet is said to be at the bendings. So this is a turning point today as we're recording this, where we're potentially seeing a peak of the energy that we've been experiencing in the, not only in the Leo area of our chart, but also related to Scorpio topics and Aries topics, depending on where those things fall in your chart, because Mars is the ruler of those two houses and will be providing resources for those particular houses in your chart. So something to pay attention to as we move through our experience today. And we're building through Gemini season to this full moon, which is an opposition between the sun and the moon. And we're dealing right now with a full moon that is coming to fruition, ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is hanging out in Taurus. It's coming into alignment with the North Node during this full moon, or right before the full moon. And that first decan of Taurus is really about planning. It's about potentially having some challenges with our material resources that cause us to say, well, we really need to get moving. We need to overcome this inertia and make a plan. I've been going through that personally, where there's just a lot of things where the I don't know, the check is coming due on some level. Like I have a vehicle, for example, that is old, and we've been kind of hanging on till it just falls apart, and sure enough, this week it did, and so now there's lots of plans about like, well, do you keep fixing an old car, or do you figure out a way to get a new one, and then what are all the options, and it sometimes it can feel overwhelming when you're trying to figure out those things, but one day at a time. And the way that I'm handling this Gemini season and some of the challenges around this and the Jupiter in Taurus and that first decan of Taurus is, taking our time, evaluating all of the possibilities, and then trying to make a decision that's based on information rather than on just doing things that are rash or because we're scared, right? So this is something to keep in mind as we move forward through this next couple of weeks is how can you recenter yourself when you're split in a lot of different directions and unify your body with your will, right? So this is some of the themes we're going to explore today is when our attention gets divided in a lot of different directions, how do we bring it back to center? How do we find the right achemical mixture to be able to move forward and to achieve our highest priorities? I think that that's something that we see in Sagittarius versus Gemini is, sometimes we split our attention in a lot of different directions in a Mercury ruled sign. We throw things into doubt, we throw things into question. Whereas we try to bring about order, peace, and unification in the Jupiter ruled signs. And sometimes we have to do that through experience. One of the biggest challenges around this full moon, when we are trying to reconcile opposites, is that we're sometimes torn between our head and our heart. And sometimes it can be really difficult for us to reconcile those things. We may be overthinking something. We may be so overwhelmed by options. Like, here's another example. I haven't been going out a lot in the last few years for various reasons. But after I picked up my lovely partner from her work after her car had broken down, we stopped at the grocery store. And I don't usually go to the grocery store. Like, it's been a long time. And I think that I was overwhelmed by the choices. I think this is something we take for granted in America in particular, is all these different choices that we're faced with in late stage capitalism or any type of store that we go into where it's like, oh my God, there's like, 10 different types of cereals that we could get or whatever. And sometimes that can be interesting and fun and enlivening. Other times it could just be overwhelming. And it's like, I need to just find something and do it and get out of here. I will recommend not going to the store when you're hungry because you'll come out with like all sorts of weird stuff. Here's like an example of what came out of that shopping trip. I got like dill pickle potato chips, a small container of tiramisu, like these like weird pretzel, peanut butter stuffed pretzels that were on sale. That was a total impulse purchase. Like 4 different types of chocolate. And I mean, these are just the weird things that I normally don't get. But I was hungry and I was like, oh man, I need all these snacks. And, Tanya, of course, in her infinite Capricorn rising wisdom is like, this is why I don't take you to the store. We're going to come out with like $60 worth of dumb stuff that we didn't need. But it is okay to treat yourself every once in a while, I think. But I think that trying to go into a place where you're making choices and making decisions while you are off-centered, or whether you're hungry, or whether you are feeling emotionally overwhelmed, that can lead to you making choices that may not really be in your best interest long-term. So we'll see how we can reconcile all of that today. Okay. Yeah, Lisa's here today. Hello, Lisa says, I feel it too, sorting through the possibilities. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff that we're sorting through with Gemini season for sure. Steven says, wow, Samuel, severity of God, the devil, seduction and downfall teaches the occult and magic. Well, and we got the right archangel for today, didn't we, Steven? Okay, so what I'd like to do is I would like to pull up the chart and let's just start going through it. I'll go through it through the houses again as well quickly. I think I'm going to try to do just a little bit of a shorter show today. I just don't have the juice for a 4-hour marathon. So let's see if we can get this one in around 2 hours or so. How does that sound? Which is still pretty long, isn't it? Hey, Michelle, how you doing? Nice to see you, friend, our Cap Rising friend. So we are seeing on the screen the full moon in Sagittarius II, June 3rd, 2023, which is a Saturday. This is 11:41 p.m. Eastern Time. So the end of the day on Saturday, and make the appropriate adjustment for your time zone. And thank you, Michelle, for the compliment. Yes, so the beard got chopped off last week, and the stubble is starting to return. So thank you for the compliment. You are playing to the Leo Rising crowd, so I appreciate that. Oh, and thanks for the super sticker, Michelle. You're always so very generous, so I appreciate you. So we're looking at this full moon in the second decan of Sagittarius, so the second 10-degree section of Sagittarius. And here we are dealing with the sun at 13 degrees of Gemini and the moon at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. And they are in opposition with one another. So we have competing interests. One way you can think about full moons is we have the sun related to light. We have the sun related to will, purpose. I think of the sun as this big spotlight that is going to be shining a light on a certain set of circumstances that we share collectively. And it is infusing its light and vitality into some of these other celestial bodies, including the moon. And the moon oftentimes is related to the body itself. It is related to our existence here on this earthly plane. So the sun was sometimes thought of as divine, and the moon was more mundane. So we are infusing a sense of purpose, solar purpose, into a lunar body. And oftentimes those things come to fruition in almost the balancing energy. I think there's something really beautiful about a full moon as far as like finding balance, finding the ripening of the fruit on the vine. So here we started off this new moon cycle in the third 10-degree section of Taurus. So we may have all these things that we're having to fix. I'm just laughing because literally I'm dealing with a car breaking down. And some of it was through it wasn't really any of our faults. It's time just came due, right? And we've been talking about the repairs that needed to be done on this car for quite some time. It's just sometimes life happens, and in finding the time and energy and resources to do that, it can be difficult when you're just trying to live everyday life. But a new moon in the third decan of Taurus says, you know what, maybe there's something that has worked well. Maybe there's something that isn't working so well. And it's time to make repairs. It's time to make repentance. It's time to find, and it's time to evaluate how well things are working in your life. And as we've moved into Gemini season, this happened really shortly after the new moon. The sun moved into Gemini a couple days after. We have this proliferation of options. So, for example, I'm just going to keep using the car metaphor because it's an easy one, and I've been going through it. The car breaks down, right? Something not working. And then your mind immediately splits into all of these questions. It throws things into doubt, okay, which is a mercurial signification, throwing things into doubt, questioning things, right? And showing you and exploring different options. So for example, there's all sorts of questions we are asking ourselves, do we need to get a used car? How, of course we do need to get a used car. New cars are really expensive. But how used, how old, how many miles? Do you want to get a regular car? How big do you want to get one? Do we want to explore getting a hybrid or an electric vehicle? So these are all questions that have started coming up in our household after the breakdown of something. So the first part of Gemini can relate to feeling a little bit of paralysis by analysis. So instead of rushing out and buying the first thing that I would see on, Carfax or whatever it is, you have to sit and think about it and weigh of all the possibilities. So we're going through that stage now. So as we get further along in the process, we will be exploring all the options, and we might feel during this period of time at this full moon a little bit of anxiety around our choices, like a difficulty reconciling all of the different demands on our time, all of our different choices. The second decan of Gemini is, there's a feeling of being literally awake at night, like we can see in the Nine of Swords, which is the tarot card that is syncretized with this decan. So oftentimes we have to be able to sit with ambiguity with Gemini too. And when we're getting to the full moon of this process, though, there is a challenge of trying to unify body and spirit towards a goal, towards the highest priority, of saying, you know what, you've thought about it, you've explored all the options. It's time just to learn from experience. It's time to find the right mixture, the right balance. It's time to shoot the arrow, like of Sagittarius, like Sagittarius being represented by a centaur or a bow and arrow in some traditions specifically, and aim and fire at your target. And you may have to overcome some challenges around it. You may have to be tested through experience. You may have to overcome some kind of nemesis, whether it's a physical person or whether it's just your own, self-sabotage or your own sense of doubt or your own brain trying to talk you into or out of something, right? It's just go time. So this may be one of movement and action and trying to figure out how to get where we need to go, right? Literally and figuratively. Oh, Dawn is here. Hello, Dawn. Nice to see you. Hi, folks. Better late than never. Watched the bidet sketch finally. Too fun. What were they doing on that bidet? That is a great question, Dawn. If you are a regular here, Dawn had some damage at her house from a bidet. we had our lovely moderator here, Remco, posted a link to an SNL sketch about a bidet. It was very funny. Something that popped into my head, and he instantly delivered on it. And I'm glad that you got to see that, Dawn, and I'm happy that gave you a chuckle. So yeah, there's a longer term narrative happening on this channel, not just week to week, where you keep showing up and we're building some sort of some inside jokes with one another, and I love it. All right. So the sun's ruled by Mercury, and in this case, in this chart, in Gemini, and the moon is going to be ruled by Jupiter. The interesting thing is both of those planets are in the same sign, Taurus. So this is a full moon about resources. It's about security. It's about how we manage resources. It's about how we take care of the physical things in our life that may be in need of repair. The moon is going to be hosted by Jupiter in the first decan, which is conjoining the North Node around this period of time. So it's really important to make plans. It's really important to plan for the future, to expand your wealth, your resources, to plow the fields of your life and get to work, get moving. Now is the time to get moving. Mercury is going to be applying to a conjunction with Uranus, and that's the ruler of the sun. So Mercury is probably asking us to have innovative solutions to, maybe there's some outside the box type of thing that you haven't really considered yet around this full moon. Now, the challenge with all of this is that both Mercury and Jupiter are in aversion to each of the lights. So what that means is that usually one of these planets would be trying to provide resources, for another. This is called the guest-host relationship. And Mercury would be trying to provide resources for the sun, while Jupiter would be trying to provide resources for the moon in this case. The problem is that by Hellenistic doctrine, neither one of those planets can witness the lights. So Mercury can't witness the sun, and Jupiter can't witness the moon, which makes it very difficult to provide resources to those planets. So my guess is that this will still be somewhat of a confusing time. And I think that there is some challenges about moving forward. The other thing that I think is just really prominent in this Gemini season in particular is a square from Saturn in the overcoming position to the Sun in Gemini. And that to me is a feeling of maybe a slight feeling of depression, a feeling of limitation, a feeling of like, well, we want to explore these options, but it's very difficult to act on them because there's these limiting circumstances that are taking place. Mars at the bending of the nodes, literally today as we're recording this, there may be a movement towards a changing of your resources potentially. Mars is going to be moving towards the south node of release. So if Mars rules any of your money houses or your resource houses or something of that nature, your career house, there may be something happening where you may have to really be careful about your resources and not overdo it, which is a really which is something that is a possibility when you have a Sagittarius full moon is kind of going overboard, right? Going big or going home, right? I've been sort of starting to get fixated, not fixated completely. I'm trying to stop myself from getting fixated, but I've gotten curious about the idea of an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle, just strictly from the gas mileage perspective, because we've driven this old Subaru for a long time, and it's a great car, but it's not great on gas. And with the way things are going with, society and whatnot, having a fuel efficient vehicle sounds like a good idea. But you start doing research and it's like, oh my goodness, it's so expensive and things of that nature. And really having to ask yourself, what do we really need to get from point A to point B, and what is possible versus what we are aspiring towards? So this is something that I want you to think about with this full moon is what is possible versus your desires. And you're probably going to be inspired towards doing maybe more than you might be capable of following through on. And I say this because Saturn is going to be squaring this lunation. And Saturn is asking us, how do we create limits in our life? How do we create healthy boundaries? What does this mean? Like I say that because Saturn is in Pisces. It's saying, how do we craft meaning in our life, right? What is the nature of what we're doing, and is it bringing meaning to our life? Is what we're doing in alignment with our beliefs, right? So this is something else that you could consider when you're going through these challenges is let your belief system be your guide, okay? Yeah, and just another thing that came up this week that was interesting as far as my musings about this lunation and what we're going through, and the square between Saturn and the Sun that is going to be perfecting soon. Like I've been reading articles about the debt ceiling in America. I know that we talked about this last week, and people had various opinions on how that was or was not going to shake out. But I read an article about what happens if America does indeed default on their debt, and how difficult it would be to get a car loan or a housing loan due to interest rates going up and things like that. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I honestly, I do think that they're probably going to figure it out. There's too much at stake for them to just kind of shoot themselves in the foot. But we're getting closer to that every time we have this argument in America. And when you have people that are, on extreme sides of a political pole, sometimes things grind to a halt. And that made me think of like, oh man, do we need to like snap into action so that we can actually get a car loan if that's what we need to do? And you might be having something like that in your life where because of a fear of scarcity, like with the North Node and Jupiter hanging out in the first decan of Taurus, being in a T-square with both Mars now and Pluto, right? Where people have dug their heels in. Like there is a political situation here where people are digging their heels in and being very stubborn about how things are going to move forward. Is that paralyzing you? Is fear of social conditions paralyzing us as a community? And someone was pointing out last week too, this could also be related to like conflict in Europe over Ukraine and things like that, where there's multiple things happening at all times in the world that could cause us potentially to be afraid and could cause us to potentially lock up or freeze up and have difficulty making choices. So those are other things that I think are maybe a part of this, and seeing how things are shaking out socially before we make financial decisions as well. More people stopping in the chat. Yeah, nice to see you friends here. Steven says Mercury is out of its shadow period. Oh, that's good. By this full moon, I'm guessing, right? Yeah, by the full moon, Steven says. Yeah, because it's still in the shadow period now. So sometimes there are certain astrological systems that speak to a planet retracing the steps that it went backwards through during a retrograde period, and then when it finally enters a new degree after the retrograde, it's said to be out of its shadow, if you're curious as to what that means. Michelle says, I've been making more money lately, maybe Pluto in the second. Well, that's great, Michelle. Like, yeah, I mean, Pluto definitely is a planet that can has been associated with wealth in the past. I believe, Pluto actually does mean wealth on some level. There's a definition of it that means wealth. So maybe through some of the changes that you're making, there may be something good coming to you. I mean, there also could be just some other aspects in your chart as well. And Dimphy is here. Hello, Dimphy. Nice to see you, friend. Welcome from the Netherlands. So those are the things I'm seeing just overall in the full moon that's coming. I'm just paying particular attention to the overcoming square with Saturn. Challenges even through water, challenges like that. The T-square is still active, but it's going to start to separate by degree around this period of time. So maybe we'll begin to get a little bit of relief from that, but it will still be in whole sign T-square. Venus is going to be moving into Leo shortly after this full moon, and it's going to go through the same journey that Mars did. So if you've been having some challenges with Mars ruled topics, or with like the Leo, Aquarius, Taurus area of your chart, Venus is about to go through that same journey. And the challenge with that is now Venus is responsible, or is always responsible, for Taurus and Libra in your chart. So those topics will go through maybe some of the I guess the standoffs, or the need to deal with some things that have been neglected for a period of time, that need to be fixed and that need to be worked through. I believe Pluto always brings up things to be dealt with that have been ignored or repressed for a long period of time. And, it's just part of life. And again, I hesitate to just always assign blame either to ourselves or to others when we're dealing with like Pluto aspects or anything like this, because oftentimes life just happens and it's really nobody's fault. And this is one of the real lessons, I think, specifically of Taurus 3, where we had the new moon of this cycle, is sometimes just shit happens, and sometimes you're just gonna have to deal with a problem that you either couldn't have anticipated or that you just didn't have time to work through at the time. Jeannie is here. Hello, Jeannie. Does it make any difference having this T-square in mutable signs? Oh, yeah, like with Saturn? Is that what you mean, Jeannie? Yeah, I mean, yes, definitely. I think that there is definitely a challenge that is a challenge of change, right? A fixed T-square may be one of getting too stuck and getting set in our ways. Sometimes when we have a mutable T-square like this, there's just so many changes happening all at once that we're trying to figure out which direction we're heading. And there's a lot of things that are in flux, right? Rather than things that are stuck, like fixed energy. So that's a good point to bring up. And thank you, Eilish, for your super sticker. I appreciate you, friend. Okay. I mean, there is a trine with Mars and a sextile to the sun. So a trine to the moon in this full moon and a sextile to the sun. So this is something that we may be able to look towards for help potentially. The difficulty is that we have no help from the benefics in this full moon. Like both Venus and Jupiter are in aversion. Venus will begin to witness the sun shortly after this, but again, it moves immediately into that opposition with Pluto and the square with Jupiter. So yeah, Beth says this is so true. It feels like I've been in a tornado lately. You and me both, Beth. There's just so many changes happening right now that yeah, I think in everyone's life, that just trying to figure out what is up and what is down is definitely can feel disorientating. I think, yeah, it's a great point. I think mutable T-squares can be more disorientating than fixed ones, whereas fixed ones is more of a standoff energy. The mutable ones is, like you said, I think a tornado is a really good metaphor for that, because just things are just swirling around you and we're just trying to make sense of it. Okay. So we are having to look to a malefic planet for help on some level with Mars here. So what does Mars in Leo ask us to do? Well, a couple things. In this case, the moon is asking us to have courage and to unify body and spirit to achieve one particular goal. Maybe not every single goal, but one particular goal. Mars in Leo is saying, look, you're going to have to put yourself out there a little bit. You're going to have to weather the heat of the spotlight, right? Or the heat of competition. You want to increase your earning potential. People have to know what your services are, for example, right? And that may feel uncomfortable because sometimes we want to just go about our business and we don't want to feel the heat of competition. Sometimes we don't want to feel the heat of criticism. Sometimes when we put ourselves out there, that opens ourselves up to criticism. For the most part, this community here has been super, super supportive and kind, and I hope that we really cultivate that here. Every once in a while I'll get a negative comment, and it is painful to receive things like that when you do public work. And the challenge is to not fixate on the one negative experience, especially with Mars and Leo here. This is human nature. We could get 50 positive comments and 50 satisfied customers. And if you have one person that has a beef or a gripe, that we tend to fixate on that, and that can ruin your whole day, especially if you fixate on it. So try to release that, trying to please every single person, because you aren't going to be able to do that. And I think that Mars in Leo says, look, this is who I am, this is what I do, and if you want to get on board, that's cool. And if you don't, that's okay too. Maybe it's just not for you, right? And that's the approach I take with my channel too, is especially at the beginning of doing this, trying to figure out who you are and what you offer to the world. Sometimes you're going to go through some experimenting phases. Sometimes things are going to work, sometimes they aren't. And sometimes people are going to find you and it's going to be their thing, and they're going to be loyal. Like there's people that show up here every single week that are amazing. And I can't express enough how grateful I am for all of you and the really amazing community that you have built with not only with each other, but with me here as well. But then the people that it doesn't resonate with, they kind of are free to go do their own thing and find something else. That's the beauty of the internet. You have so many choices, and it's so easy to find things that you do resonate with. And I guess what I will say, if you are putting yourself out there, try not to listen to the one or two negative comments that you get. And if you are someone who puts out negative energy out into the world, don't do that. Who is that serving, right? If something isn't for you, just move on. There's so many things that could be for you, that why do you need to ruin someone's day just because you're upset about one aspect of something that you're consuming on the internet, right? So there's multiple ways that Mars could be helping us in this story. It's helping us to cut out, maybe even cut out our own egos and say, okay, we've we don't have to be liked by everyone, right? We don't have to please everyone. And secondly, we do have to be courageous enough to keep going, even in the face of criticism, right? So this is something that I will say is important at this full moon is you're going to have to believe in yourself and kind of assert your will during this period of time. Often when you're trying to make changes in your life, you have to get over a certain self-doubt experience. You have to get over this, not only the criticism of other people, but your own criticism. That's the hardest thing to get over. And a lot of times when we have, like, for example, a fixed T-square, we may be really set in our ways, right? We may be really set in doing something a certain way. And to just get some movement, you need to have martial, laser-focused willpower. I would almost think of this Mars in a sextile to the sun and a trine to the moon sort of as the arrow of Sagittarius, right? You've got to focus your energy in a specific direction. And, that's going to, sometimes you'll hit the target and sometimes you won't. And you just have to keep firing off more arrows, I think, sometimes. Okay, that's the part of the learning experience. And Chandrika, thank you so much for your super sticker. I love the little try again sign there. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and this is something else. I was talking with another friend who is in a similar business as me here, and they were getting a little frustrated with their, with how things were going. And my advice to them was just keep going. Oftentimes that you will not see the immediate results of your work. I started this channel in like 2018, and for the first few months, nobody was watching. I would get 5-10 views and things of that nature. And it's not like 1 million views now, but we've built up something that I think we can feel good about on some level. And you have to just keep doing that. And when you're starting out in a new area of your life, do it for you. Don't do it for the applause. Don't do it to impress people. Do it to express who you are and what you're about. This was some really great advice I got from a friend who was a music teacher back when I was doing a lot more music and still trying to find my voice. And they had some criticism for me that at the time, like, sort of hurt, but had like a light bulb moment come on. They said, you're doing all these, like, vocal gymnastics, and it feels like you're trying to impress the audience. And instead of trying to impress them, try to express what you're feeling rather than having it be about, like, oh, are they going to like me? Think about it as, are they going to feel what I feel? And that really, that had a huge, profound effect on me. And it's such a small shift, even a turn of phrase, but it has such a big difference in the way that we put our energy out into the world. So think about that. How can you express versus impressing, especially with this Mars in Leo? I'm just looking through this chat here. You guys have such great comments here already. Dimfy's telling us about the greenhouse and the garden. Good. Oh, Dimfy, it sounds like you've got a lot of work ahead of you, friend. So I wish you luck with that. Yeah, figure out PayPal. I mean, not everybody needs to figure out PayPal. Sometimes if you just are, really set in your ways, you could send someone a check in the mail. This is my experience. And again, I'm very grateful for that. So I want to shout out my friend who wasn't into PayPal, more so for ethical purposes rather than just not being able to figure it out. So we all have different things that, little lines in the sand that we draw. And I'm never going to really admonish anyone for being a little bit of a Luddite. I would consider myself a little bit of that. I adjust slowly to adopting new technology and new systems. When it's necessary, I will do it. But I think that I want to see if it works first, and I want to see it tested again and again. But again, some of us, we need some people who are experimental. We need some people that are maybe less risk averse and kind of daredevils with some of these things, or else we would never learn. All right. Silent Space says, calculating the Arabic lot of cucumbers and melons to Dimphy. Yes, that's a good way to figure out how things are going to turn out in the garden, right? All these lots. They had lots which were distances between planets and kind of like abstract points in the chart. And they had all these lots for different commodities, and a lot of cucumbers, melons, beans, lentils. And so, yeah, that's a great point. And kind of funny. Dawn says, I was watching Stormy Grace this week and heard your name. You affect many people in more ways than you ever know. That's interesting, Dawn. I'd like to hear more about what Stormy was saying on her channel. I like Stormy. She's just got a really nice positive energy, and I had a nice conversation with her a few years back with talking about the planets. You can probably find that if you search. I was a guest on her channel kind of describing the 7 traditional planets. And I'm kind of missing meeting up with some of these friends at Norwalk this week. I think today is the first day of the Northwest Astrology Conference, and there's a few people that I would definitely like to see and catch up with. Overall, I'm sort of a hermit, and the energy of those conferences is overwhelming to me. And I think that if I had my druthers, I'd kind of stay home and pet my cats and spend time in my garden. But there are definitely a few people that it would be nice to see. So I hope that they're having a good time connecting, and support people like Stormy on their channels and things like that. Dawn says she was referring to a challenging aspect in her chart that you gave her a different perspective on. It reaffirmed for me why I like listening to you. Oh, that's really nice. And I'm happy I was able to help Stormy with that. And she's got a really powerful Mercury on the top of her chart in Gemini, and we talked about a mutual reception, I think, that she had with Mars and Venus in her chart, but I believe they were both in exile, and there was a really interesting way that they were helping one another. So I'm really happy to hear that, and that she was able to find some solace in our conversation. Again, she's a really nice lady and has been someone who's been very kind to me. Let's see. Oh, Carol's here. Immortal and Wild. Nice to see you, friend. I've been in my garden de-brambling. I hope you're still enjoying yours. Yeah. If you want a progress update with the garden here, I've been watering a lot. I have spread wildflower seeds in 2 areas in the back of my house. One of them is doing pretty well near the back fence. I'll probably post some pictures of that. I have some repurposed concrete that was broken that I found buried in the backyard, and I made a nice little path with it through that area so I can kind of step through there. I planted another series of wildflower seeds on a little island in the back of, there's like a parking lot in the back of my house. And that one's not doing quite as well. I don't know if the soil is different there, but what I do have coming in a week on June 3rd is a whole few flats of plugs that I will be filling in some of the gaps. So I started some stuff with wildflower seeds, and I have some plugs to be able to fill in the gaps as well. And there's some other really cool things that are coming up too. Like I have some red columbine that's looking really cool lately that I planted last year. Sometimes things do a lot better in the second year. The hostas are getting enormous. I've been watering a lot more than I did last year, and the hostas are doing well. And I have some arborvitaes that really we should have been watering the whole entire time. I really wasn't quite aware that they needed as much water as they seem to need in the beginning of their lifespan. And again, this is really the first year that I've owned this property, so this is sort of a learning experience, and I wasn't really responsible for the care of the landscaping on the property, so learning a lot as we go along. Okay, and I am enjoying the garden. Though one of the things, Carol, I'll say that is a simple pleasure that I really enjoy is when I've got the hose on shower mode, right? I have this little sprayer attachment that has a little, adjustable spraying attachment. And when I put it on the shower and it's sunny out and I'm watering and I can see a rainbow in the mist that comes off of the hose and off of the water that's going into the garden. That's just a really nice moment, just seeing that little rainbow coming, and it's very peaceful and something that I've really been enjoying. So yes, I love hearing all these gardening stories here. I had another student that has been doing some gardening, and sounds like it's really helping them find some peace in their life too. And it's just really inspiring to see people reconnecting with the earth and finding peace within that. All right. So I think this is kind of the gist of this full moon here, as far as the chart of the moment goes. I'm looking through my notes here. We've talked about the host being Jupiter and first decan of Taurus conjoining the North Node, but of course it's an inversion. We have a separating, that's one other thing I wanted to point out. There's going to be a separating aspect from Venus and Neptune. So there's going to be a trine, a Venus-Neptune trine that is happening shortly before this full moon. And it's in water signs. It's in the last decan of Cancer and Pisces, respectively. So I think that this is a really nice time to spend some time either watering your garden like I did and seeing the rainbows, or spending some time near water. This was some of the advice I had for our animal, which, spoiler alert, it was the dragonfly again. This is the animal I got for the new moon in Taurus. And again, I picked the same one just randomly. And a lot of the advice talked about spending time near water and finding a new vision and coming into alignment with both light, which could be the fire element, and the water element. So, dragonflies encourage us to spend time in the sunshine near a body of water, recharging ourselves, finding balance between our intuitive and rational selves. They are of both water and air, and they have that nice rainbow reflective quality to them. So again, that could be one of the ways to really find a calmness and a peace of mind during this full moon, is finding a source of emotional balance, finding a water source. I have a running joke in my family. Every time we pass a lake or a river or an ocean, I would always say, you know what, I just realized that I would love to live near water. And it was, again, I said it so many times when we were traveling that it just became a running joke. And there are many different ways to connect with that. It could be just a small fountain, or even like a bird bath, or your hose in the backyard. It could be a little creek or a stream. It could be a river in your town, or a lake, or the ocean. However you connect, there are ways to do that. Tanya and I went for a really nice walk the other day after kind of a stressful weekend, at a little place off the beaten path, and there was a little stream and creek, and there was all sorts of interesting things to see. We found some 4-leaf and a 5-leaf clover, which was cool, and just walked near the meandering creek for an hour or two. And it really does put your mind at ease. It really does help you relax and find peace. And again, it doesn't have to be something dramatic. You don't have to find like a Hawaiian waterfall, although that would be amazing. I would love to see that someday. And there's some beautiful waterfalls in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan here also. So that could, if you have something like that in your area, awesome. That can really be healing, but it doesn't have to be that dramatic to have the type of effect that we're looking at here. I would say also, with Venus and Neptune in a trine here in water sign, just be careful about your taste around this period of time. Venus in the 3rd decan of Cancer speaks towards luxurious tastes, and sometimes when we have a contact with Neptune, we may be not being realistic about what we can and cannot afford. And I'm telling myself this in advance as I'm like looking at like potentially having to replace a vehicle. It's like, you got a lot of things coming due this summer, bud. Like, I have a lot of things to fix on our house this summer, and I may have to practice frugality in like, various areas of my life to be able to take care of all my responsibilities. So you may have to have a situation like that in your life where you may desire something fancy, okay, around this full moon, but you may have to really kind of buckle down and be practical if you have a lot of different things that are asking for your attention and for your planning. All right, so that's Venus trine Neptune. It's separating though by this full moon, so we should be starting to get more realistic around this period of time. The other thing I'll say is the moon is out of bounds during this full moon. If I'm looking ahead from my own personal experience, on this full moon, this is the day I'm going to pick up all the flats of plants that I ordered a few months ago for our native pollinator habitat in our yard. And I think that my initial instinct is going to be like, I need to find places for all these plants right away. They need to be put in the ground. Oh my God. What are we waiting for? And I have to, understand that there is a process that you go through and you need to pace yourself. And I'm saying that because when the moon is out of bounds, sometimes we can either overestimate or overdo physical things. And I've had some experiences early on with the garden this year where I got really fixated on bringing something to completion. Like I wanted to get all of the weeds out of this place, or I want to dig this entire space up, or I wanted to, cut every single piece of dead wood with my chainsaw in the backyard. And I did that, but my body really suffered the next few days from that. And it probably would have behooved me to pace myself a little bit better. So I also want you to maybe consider pacing yourself during this full moon experience also, because the moon might be pushing us to go beyond our physical limits. This is also true of the second decan of Sagittarius, where we may push ourselves beyond what we have perceived as our physical limits. I'm thinking of really famous athletes that have this placement. Michael Jordan has the moon at 10 degrees of Sagittarius, and he also has the added benefit of having it close to the fixed star Antares, which talks about obsession. So this decan is really colored by the fixed star Antares, the heart of the Scorpion, where we're so fixated on a goal. And in his case, he was fixated on winning to the point where he had some games where he was very, very ill. I'm thinking of the flu game in the finals. I believe, was that against the Utah Jazz? I can't remember who he was playing, but he had a game where he had the flu or food poisoning or something like that. And he got out there and he he went out just looking just terrible, and went out and scored 45 points and willed them to victory and pushed his body beyond its limit, and probably needed an IV afterwards and all of these things, severely dehydrated, things like that. So, and I'm also considering Giannis Antetokounmpo, who has the sun in this decan of Sagittarius, and I've witnessed him push his body beyond any reasonable limit to will his team to victory. I'm thinking of the year that they won the championship 2 years ago, where he had a severe knee hyperextension. His knee just buckled exactly the wrong direction, and I was very nervous that he had torn something significant. And he was back within a few days, and a normal person would taken them months to come back from that. And he willed him to the championship. It was really impressive, and he has some lingering issues from that. But I think that, again, when the moon's out of bounds, just be careful with your body. Okay. So I've covered Saturn and the overcoming square to the sun. So we're having to respect our limitations, narrow down our options. I've talked about Mars just being past the bending of the nodes, where we're at a critical juncture of having to maybe make a choice. Literally today, as I'm recording this, on what is the date today? May 26th. Okay, so we may be seeing the fallout from that, of the choices that we've had to make recently. We've talked about Mercury conjoining Uranus at 20 degrees of Taurus the day after the full moon, where you have to be innovative about your solutions, about how you go about repairing something that may have broken down. And then we've also discussed Venus at the bending of the nodes shortly after, and opposing Pluto and squaring Jupiter from roughly the 5th of June to the 8th of June. So this is a time period where we probably going to be going through, again, similar challenges with the stubbornness that we saw with Mars going through that experience. But maybe Venus is trying to help. Maybe we've identified the conflict, and now Venus is maybe trying to soften these things. We may be more attracted to putting ourselves out there and to competing. As we get further along the cycle, Venus is going to square Jupiter on the 11th of June, and then the Sun is going to move into a square with Neptune as we move towards the new moon in the third decan of Gemini at 26 Gemini on the 18th. So again, it's really important to stay grounded during this lunar cycle, to stay realistic, to figure out which choices you need to make and which ones you can put on the back burner. The new moon in the third decan of Gemini, we may be overwhelmed with thoughts and choices, and we just have to release some of those options. Okay, like that decan is where we see the 10 of swords, where you got swords in someone's back, basically. Like one of the twins has to be sacrificed so the other can live. So again, that's what we're moving towards with this lunation. Okay, so I'm going to check in with the chat here, and then we'll maybe take this through the houses. And maybe I'll show you just a little bit of the decans of Sagittarius, give you a preview of that. Oh yeah, Dawn says yes, it was her Mars and Venus in regards to Stormy. Yeah, Stormy has Mars in Libra and Venus in Aries, and they're in mutual reception, but they are both in exile. So, but again, there are ways to have what might on the surface look like a very challenging aspect. But then if you look at it from a different perspective, like she and I talked about, that can completely unlock some things in your life sometimes. And that's some of the beauty of astrology, is just seeing things from a new perspective. So I appreciate you sharing that, Dawn. Carol says, I killed my hosta. Oh no. My plants die with that cold winter, so I'll be planting more. Yeah. And that's just part of gardening. You know, sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. I have one area of my yard where I seeded a bunch of wildflowers and it's doing really well. And I have another area of my yard that I seeded the exact same, wildflower seeds, and it's not doing as well. There's just different conditions, even just in one particular ecosystem. And that's part of the learning process, right? It's just saying, if something doesn't work, try something else. Okay, still have to be careful with wildflowers, Dimpy says. I've spent afternoons last few weeks getting aster seedlings out from in between my strawberries. Difficult roots. Yeah, I mean, they're hardy for a reason, right? So you gotta weed that garden too. Dawn says, Sagittarius has no limits. Didn't you know? Till Uranus sits in your 6th on Saturn for what feels like forever. Oh, Dawn. Yeah, I mean, everyone has their limits, right? I think sometimes it's the perspective of whether you respect them or not. Like I think that there are tough lessons for every sign. And sometimes for Sagittarius in particular, knowing when to say when and when enough is a tough lesson. Knowing what the true meaning of freedom is another, I think, tough Sagittarian lesson. I have found that freedom does not necessarily mean never having a responsibility. I have found that freedom, sometimes you feel more free when you appreciate the limits that you have in your life, when you put down roots. I've worked with Sagittarian clients in the past that are really afraid to put down roots, even when they have enormous responsibilities. And a lot of times what we're working through with Sagittarius issues is it's okay to have a home base. It's okay to have some place that is consistent. And you can find different ways to be free within that. On the flip side, like Gemini, always looking for novelty. Like both of those signs are attracted to change. Sagittarius is attracted to changes in their physical locations. Gemini is attracted to changes in their mindset, their ideas, their pursuits. My mom was a great example of this. She had a lot of changes in her youth, and kind of blew up her life every once in a while. Every few years, she would kind of, get bored with something, quote unquote, and blow it up and have to pursue something else. And finally, she learned that that was hurting people and that that was destructive. And instead of doing that, she started gardening and she started decorating. So she stayed in the same place, but she was coming into alignment with the changes that happened seasonally through nature, whether it was through expressing her creativity by decorating her house in a different way or remodeling certain parts of her house, or through planting something new or moving something around or seeing how the plants change through the season, helped her to understand the necessity of change without having to completely destroy everything. So this is this is a mutable sign lesson, is how can you come into alignment with change while also respecting the things that are immutable in your life, the things that need to be consistent, the things that you are committed to in your life. Okay, Jeannie says, I have my sun conjunct Saturn in the Sagittarius second. I know, and knowing that fixation is the issue gives me calm. I find that I really need a goal to work towards always. Thank you. That's a great observation, Jeannie. Sagittarians do need something to work towards. And I'll give you an example of this. I've been, I'm a supporter of the Copics. You know that I'm a huge fan of Austin Copic and his work with the Decans. And I'm also a huge fan of Caitlin's work with Sphere and Sundry and her magical products. We've learned a lot from both of them. And I've sort of been amassing a little mini collection of some of the things that she offers, in addition to using some of the things that my partner makes through Third Coast Mojo. And I've been working a little bit with Antares oil, which is of course the fixed star in the second decan of Sagittarius. And what I've learned from just using that materia in general is that if I'm going to wear that, I need to give it a job. I need to give it a goal to work on. I've been using it in my garden because I say, I want to achieve this. Give me strength, Antares, to achieve this specific purpose today. I've also realized that if I don't give that energy a job, it's very destructive. And you get like angry, like you can get like really like bent out of shape. You can get restless. So if you're a Sagittarius, or you have Sagittarian placements, or you want to work with Antares, give it a job to do. Set yourself a goal. And this is true for the first decan of Sagittarius as well. And my daughter is the moon there. And I've talked about, and Austin talks about in his book, 36 Faces. If you don't give Sagittarius 1 a job to do, sometimes you can become a parasitic host for someone else's goals and dreams and hopes. This is also probably true of some of the other Sagittarian placements, is when you don't choose the target, oftentimes other people will choose you to be the vehicle for their target and for their ambitions. And that can be frustrating for a Sagittarian person. I've witnessed this with my Sagittarius 3 partner who has the sun in that decan. Sometimes when she's drifting aimlessly, someone will choose her and say, you are able to get things done. Do this thing for me. And then they turn into the figure in the 10 of Wands that's carrying all the heavy burdens. So just be careful of that. Give the energy somewhere to go during this full moon. If you are just constantly trying to explore every single option at this full moon, you're not in alignment with it. Pick one thing, one particular goal, and see if you can bring that to completion. Okay? The other stuff will be there. But try to, and instead of picking something that is a distraction, pick your highest priority. Tanya and I have been talking about this concept of time management, where it talks about eating the frog. This is a good time to eat the frog. And basically what that means is, before you do the other things that are more pleasurable, do the hardest thing first. And use your energy to do the hardest, the most difficult thing that you've been avoiding. And then the other stuff is going to start flowing from that. So this full moon, eat the frog. Find the thing that has been your highest priority, that you know is going to move the needle, and choose to put your energy into that. And the benefits are going to come. right? The benefits are going to come. And pace yourself. Okay, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it fell in a day. So that's the irony of that, right? So it may take you a while to get where you're going, but like things can crumble overnight, and then you have to pick up the pieces and rebuild, and it takes time. Okay. Dimphy says I have natal Venus in Cancer in the second on 26 degrees. All right, so be careful, Dimphy. Don't overdo it spending-wise with Venus, Neptune trine during this moon. Prudence is here. Hello, Prudence. Nice to see you, friend. Hope you're doing well. Callie at the beach says I'm a Venus and Scorpio. Venus, I'm Scorpio in the 10th. Not the best, that's for sure. Well, you know, there are advantages and disadvantages of every single placement, Callie. And sometimes Venus and Scorpio will help you to see the beauty of decay and the beauty of letting go, and finding ways to compost things can lead you to the liberation and freedom that you're looking for. Dawn says I'm very rooted, and I think because of my Saturn. Yeah, again, you can think of an archetype as one small piece of a much larger blueprint that your life is printed on, and oftentimes we won't necessarily fall into the cliched archetypal energy of a particular sign because there's other factors that are helping to balance those things out. So consider that also. And your rising sign could change things, like your Saturn could change things, like all sorts of things. Pay particular attention to planets on the angles, though. The 1st, 7th, 10th, or 4th house, or near the ascendant, descendant, MC, and IC, because those can really color one's life trajectory and personality. Don says, I think we are just attracted to newness to not be stale. You need a partner who can share that with you. I knew it at a young age. I travel a lot and go to the mountains to renew in the rivers. Ooh, I like that, Don. I like that. Okay. Rikara is here. Hello, Rikara. Nice to see you. Says Uranus 1 degree and Neptune 25 degrees, both Sagittarius. Struggling over here. Well, hang in there, Rikara. I'm sorry that you're struggling right now. Yeah, the Neptune square is a difficult one with your natal Neptune square, Neptune and Pisces. That can feel pretty disorientating, but one day at a time, right? Try to make a list of the pros and cons of the things that are going on in your life, and find out which things are your true priorities. Focus on that for now. Silent Space says they have the law of spirit in Sag 1, relating to the things that we're speaking towards today. Tanya Gerardo is here. Hello, Tanya. Natal Neptune on Antares, 7th house. What you say is so true. Great advice. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Tanya. I'm glad that we're shedding some light on what can be a challenging placement sometimes, right? And intensity is the energy of Antares. It's obsession. And how do we have appropriate intensity? Sometimes, like Michael Jordan, for example, his competitiveness was appropriate on the basketball court, but it got him into a lot of trouble on the golf course, right? When he was, making bets with people and gambling. So he really had to learn how to maybe balance those energies out and find an appropriate outlet for that intensity. It probably wouldn't be as inappropriate in an intimate relationship too. And I don't know what his personal life is like, but I know he's been divorced once or twice, and that might be part of it too, is when you don't have an outlet for that energy, it can probably create problems in other areas of your life. Jeannie says, wow, not have a goal, then other people using me for their vehicle for their dreams. That is so true. I have a stellium in Pisces, and that was so true for my life. I felt victimized after. Thank you. Well, Jeannie, there's ways to reclaim that power, right? Sometimes just realizing that it's happening is a first good step, and then including yourself in the equation. This is something that is very difficult to do, and I've struggled with this in the past too. Is oftentimes when we're sensitive and we want to be helpful, we give beyond what is healthy for us, and being able to give from a place of centeredness and a place of abundance rather than from a place of lack. And when we give too much, we are creating a condition of lack in our life. We can be much more effective helpers when we take our own needs into account. Okay. Speaking of that, I think I need a stretch. So, all these are great comments. Keep them coming. So let's stretch, get a drink, get a snack, and here's your trigger warning if you have challenges with eating sounds. Sometimes due to the length of this program, I just need to get some fuel. And I apologize if that's something that is annoying. But so it goes. Just mute it. What else? Do your stretches. Get a snack. Move your body. Take care of your body. Do me a huge favor, friends. Please like this video. Helps us to get the word out to more people. Subscribe to the channel. I've been seeing a lot of new subscribers on the email list. I really appreciate that. I've been putting some more time and creative energy into the email list lately, and it's become something where I've been doing the song of the week. This week's song of the week was a tribute to Tina Turner, who passed in the middle of this week. It was What's Love Got to Do with It? Her #1 hit off of the album Private Dancer that she released when she was 44 years old. And I thought that was really fascinating because Tina Turner was a Sagittarius I sun and a Gemini I moon. And since we're going through the sun in the first decan of Gemini I here, we may be feeling a little bit of stuckness. And Tina Turner had a really beautiful, like, multi-generational appeal. She was a symbol of triumph over some very difficult circumstances. You know, if you aren't familiar with her story, she was in a very abusive relationship with her husband, Ike Turner, in the 60s and maybe into the 70s, and was able to escape that abusive relationship and really find a sense of freedom and a sense of just, I don't know, she was just allowed to be herself finally. And I thought that was really inspiring. She's also a Leo rising, and you could tell with her, mane, her 80s, hairsprayed mane. I love Tina Turner, and she was part of my youth growing up. Like, she was becoming very popular when I was just starting to understand what music was, and the 80s Tina Turner was part of my formative experience. And yeah, Dawn says she was an absolute force. She was a force of nature, and I just really appreciate her, and I'm sad that she's gone, but she definitely had a life well lived. So that's a long way of saying, if you want to get a little bit of information about music and astrology and see some of these musicians' charts, sign up for the email list. And I usually send that out about once a week, and I've been carefully trying to curate that and make connections with the astrology, and it's fun. It's a nice way to honor the creative part of myself as well. Okay, I'm just looking through the chat here, getting caught up on some of your awesome comments. Yeah, Lisa says, yep, great advice. I have Jupiter in Sagittarius. I definitely give it away if I don't give it a focus in my own life. I mean, that's common. There's a generosity to Sagittarius, and there's nothing wrong with giving away some energy, but within reason, right? You need to hold back something for yourself so that you have more to give. It's that goose golden egg type of thing, right? Where you're not giving away the goose. You got to take care of the goose so you can keep being generous and magnanimous in spirit and not burn yourself out, right? Okay, so many great comments. Hey, Illis J is here. Your frog legs taste like chicken. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever had frog legs. I'd be curious to try. Eat the frog, right? Nanda Devi is here. Hello, Nanda Devi. Nice to see you, friend. You're welcome, Makara. I hope this is helping you today. And you're helping each other today. I love it. Michelle says, I love Tina Turner too, and was sad to see that she passed. She just had a really positive, inspiring energy to her. I mean, I know that, not everybody's going to have the same taste in music and things like that, but I think that there are certain artists that transcend, different genres and things like that. And just her story and her energy and her perseverance is something that made her a little bit more of a musician and more of a legend and an icon, right? She was a feminist icon as well. And just a really, I don't know, I'm sad that she's gone. And that one hit me kind of hard. Like there was a year recently, I think it was 2016. I think it was before the election in 2016, where we lost all these musicians like Prince, George Michael, Princess Leia, like Carrie Fisher. Like half the entertainment industry just passed away in the same year. And there was a lot of, folks in there that I grew up listening to. And that's one thing that's interesting about getting further along in life is a lot of times when people pass, oftentimes it's kind of, when you're younger and they're older folks, you don't have a lot of connection with them. You didn't grow up with them. They weren't really a part of your experience. And there's a disconnect between it. But you start to get further along in life. And then some of these people that did have a huge effect on you, like it becomes more personal. And that's what I've been starting to experience lately with some of these people passing on is, wow, I was like, wow, I really had an experience of that. That person really moved me. And that's definitely a different, it's a different stage of life when you're starting to experience that. So yeah, honoring their memory though is a great way to do that. I've been listening to Tina Turner for the last 2 days in a row. I like her song from Mad Max too. We don't need another hero, right? That's a great one. Beyond the Thunderdome. There's a joke in our house. Tanya loves to impersonate Tina Turner from that movie, and sometimes she'll call me, "Come here, raggedy man." Like, this is a line from that Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. So funny. Let's see. Dimphy says, "Nice your garden. Tanya will be able to make her own homegrown essential oils and hydrosols." Yeah, that's something that we're definitely taking into consideration when we're planting. Is will these be able to be infused into the Third Coast Mojo products and things like that? So it's there's all sorts of benefits to getting out in nature and getting your hands dirty. All right. Yeah, Babs is here. It's talking about has Venus and Saturn in the 12th with Sagittarius, need to learn self-care first. Yep. I mean, it's a tough lesson to learn, especially when we're trained from young age to give and to sacrifice. And there's nothing wrong with sacrifice. Let me make that clear. Like, there is something honorable about sacrificing and doing things for other people. But again, it's a balance. And if you're giving beyond what is healthy for you, the ability to help is diminished. Beth says, I appreciate the newsletter and all the effort you put into the show and newsletter. Well, thanks, Beth. I appreciate you. That's inspiring. I love that people are getting some benefit out of it. Nanda Devi says, simply the best, keeps running through my head. Yeah, that was a good one too. That was what I said in the newsletter. I was like, it's so hard to pick something because she had so many great tunes. Like, that was something I considered also. I feel like that one was one that had a huge effect on me when I was a young person. I was like about 4 or 5 years old when that came out. The What's Love Got to Do with It, and I remember that video. Her hair was just it loomed so large as a Leo rising, like the mane. So that's part of the reason I chose that. And that song really does speak to releasing yourself from bondage, releasing yourself from the feeling of being stuck in an abusive situation, and feeling empowered through that. So yeah, there's so many great tunes though. Okay, so let me look at my notes here and see if there's anything else I forgot about with this full moon, and then we'll take it through the houses briefly here. So I wrote down split in many different directions, Gemini 2, the sun, reunite to achieve, competing interests, but a need to unify body and spirit, pulling it all together to achieve a singular goal. focusing on the target, testing your mettle to overcome, maintaining openness and curiosity while still moving towards your highest priority. That's important. So when we are dealing with a full moon, we do have to kind of honor the energy of the sun, not just the energy of the moon, but the energy of the sun as well. Oftentimes when we have oppositions, we think we have to solve the riddle, but sometimes we have to allow for the paradox to happen. So we do have to stay curious. We do have to stay asking questions, while also maybe focusing on a singular goal. Maybe to achieve the goal, we need to have the flexibility of Gemini, right? We need to understand that there are going to be times where our energy is split in a lot of different directions. So sometimes doing both simultaneously is important. T. Susan Chang, in her book 36 Secrets, talks about the transition from Sagittarius 1, 2, and 3 as the arrow in the first decan, the strength of the archer or the bow in the second decan, and then finally the arrow hitting the target in the third decan. So we're at this place in this full moon where we have the strength of the archer, the tensile strength to pull that very taut string back and be able to focus our aim on something so that we can leap into action to hit our preferred target. Temperance was something I wanted to talk about. So here is the two cards of Gemini, okay, with the lovers, and then Temperance being the card of Sagittarius. So the lovers often talks about an ethical choice that we are facing, okay? The splitting of attention with the Garden of Eden, if you want to lean on that particular mythological system. The biting into the apple and splitting of attention into multiple directions, the awareness of dualities, right? And with Sagittarius, we're trying to take all of those elements that we are now aware of and blend them together in an achemical mixture like you see here. I believe this is Archangel Michael, okay, and the element of fire. And they talk about rainbows in this and the blending of air and water here in this card sometimes also. Sometimes you'll see different tarots that'll use a rainbow in this card. Okay, but it's this mixture, it's this blending. It's trying to get the right mix so that we can achieve the goal. So instead of just getting focused on the disparate elements during this full moon, think about how you can blend those things into different parts. I also want to give a shout out to Nanda Devi for, getting me hip to the Mushroom Hunters Tarot. This is something we've been talking a lot about this in our class, the Flowering Wand, the guided group study class. We talk a lot about mycelium and mushrooms. And she showed me this deck and I had to get it because I thought it was really cool. You could see that it's very similar to the Rider-Waite Tarot, but it's using the imagery of mushrooms. And here's like the Fool. It's got the little puffball mushrooms. It's really beautiful. I really like it. It's from Joe Buckley, created by Joe Buckley. So let's pull out the two cards for this full moon, or maybe we'll see. We'll pull out the two cards. Maybe even look at the Temperance card here. A second. I'm still learning what this deck is all about and what it is trying to teach me. So I'll have to. Oh man, so many amazing things here. Okay. So that's number 6. So here's the lovers. The lovers look like, what are those, bluets maybe? And then we've got what looks like a conch or a shelf. I mean, they look sort of like reishi and temperance. All right. And then we've got these bluets, I think. They're purple mushrooms in the lovers card. It's pretty cool. My partner pointed out as well that Pamela Coleman Smith in that Rider-Waite deck just really was such a monumental work, right? It was something that, all of these decks are inspired by now. And they're just kind of building off of that on some level. It's just really fascinating. That's why I really like that Rider-Waite deck, and I tend to stick with it because there's so much esoteric information that's built into it. Now, I haven't had a chance to sit down with the guidebook for this yet, but here's our oh, that's the 8. Nope, sorry. This is why I gotta sorry friends, I pulled out the wrong card. There's the 9. Okay, so here's our 9 of swords. Okay, and here's our 9. These are shaggy manes. It's pretty cool. I'm not sure what these are called. It's pretty cool. Yeah, they look great. Nanda Devi. The Fool card is super cool with the what are these called? Yeah, the spores going off into the rose. These are little puff balls, mini puff ball. Really neat. Really excited about it. So check that out. The Mushroom Hunters Tarot by Joe Buckley. And thank you, Nanda Devi, for that recommendation. Okay. Callie at the beach says, what astro software do you use? Is something you could walk through on with how you use it? I use Astro Gold, which is sort of a Mac version of Solar Fire, but not really. I love it. It's a great program. I do have I have maybe 1 or 2 videos where I've walked through how to use it a little bit, at least with the Deccan and Term wheels on my channel, but I could be convinced to do something like that, potentially. There are a lot of training videos for Astro Gold from the company itself online also. So you can find that, but I'd be happy to work through it with you. Either maybe we do something like this on the channel, or if you want to reach out and book like a training session, I'd be happy to do that. I've done that for folks as well. Bella is here. Hello, Bella. Yeah, Dawn's got an awesome soundtrack running through your head right now. Good, good. Hopefully some Tina Turner. All right. Carolina Zerpa is here. Hello, Carolina. Fellow Leo rising here in 2nd Decan Gemini Sun. Love Tina too. Yeah, we lost a great one, didn't we? Beth says, I am debating which of T. Susan Chang's books she has tarot. You can't really go wrong with Susie's books there, friend. I have what I think are all of them. I have Tarot Deciphered, Tarot Correspondences, The Living Tarot, and 36 Secrets. If you're into the Decans, 36 Secrets is an awesome book. I like Tarot Deciphered as it is basically the amalgamation of all of her Fortune's Wheelhouse discussions with M.M. Moline. Tarot Correspondences is a little bit more like, there's a lot more charts and graphs in it. So I don't know. The Living Tarot, the new book she has, is more of a workbook style about how to learn tarot, and it's slightly less of the esoteric parts and more of like, here's how to do a spread, and here's some questions to ask yourself, and it's valuable. There's a lot of good information in it. But I think it's more complementary to some of her other works rather than just a standalone. So there's sort of my review on some of her stuff. She's awesome though. She's probably my favorite tarot teacher for sure. Silent Space says, Jupiter's quality in an earth sign brings temperance to mind. Its mutual reception by exaltation with the moon, though in aversion, might require extra attention to the theme of temperance. Okay. So that's a good point, Silent Space. Let's take a look at this again real quick. And yeah, people are also thumbsing up an Astro Gold tutorial. I love the ideas, and a lot of these ideas are kicking around in my brain, friends. I'm hearing you with all of these things. At this point, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep it together with some of the things that I've had going, and trying to work through some things on the home front with, like, car, the house, the garden. I've got to do a lot of repairs this summer, so I'm being conservative about new offerings that I'm putting out that will require a huge outpouring of attention and energy, because I know myself and I get a little bit of like that Antares obsession. It's hard for me to do something without pouring a ton of energy into it. So when I commit to something, I really commit to it. So I've been very careful about not overcommitting myself so that I can continue to do the things that I'm doing well. But I feel, for those of you who are curious, I feel that I've got Jupiter hitting my midheaven in mid to late August. So I think that if you give me some time and some space to figure some stuff out, I think there's some new expansive offerings coming for the fall. I usually launch some new things towards the fall energy. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and I appreciate your patience with that too. Jeannie says, I collect all T. Susan Chang's books and ordered her newest one after Spencer told us about this channel. Oh, good. I'm glad I got Susie another sale. And Kelly says, no pressure, Spencer. We're just planting seeds. We understand it takes time. It might take quite a few seasons to bear fruit. Amen. And thank you, friend, for that. You're talking to a Taurus moon here who slow. I try to plant seeds that I can sustain over time, right? And I appreciate that patience, and I appreciate that. And I'm learning that not every season we have to plant every single seed. Like, this is something that I'm learning with my garden. Is I had a vision for transforming the entire yard to pollinator habitat, and there's about a 1/4 acre here, and that's not going to happen. I have 2 spaces in the back that are probably going to be converted this year, and then there's like 3 or 4 other spaces, in the front yard's not going to happen because I don't want to tear that up this summer and then leave it torn up. So planning out multiple seasons and pacing yourself, super important. And sometimes you have to pare back the vision so that you can do one thing really well. Again, this is the Gemini Sagittarius energy, isn't it? Okay. I do think that there's going to be a new guided group study coming up in end of June, early July. I was thinking about primary directions. I know people were asking me about that. I have a primary directions book that I really think would be fun. But maybe we shift gears and do a tarot book. I'm trying to decide between tarot primary directions or maybe even the Secrets of the Rider-Waite Tarot, which I find is a really cool book. And let me know in the chat what you think you'd be interested in. I have to put that together pretty soon here. So if there's something that you're like, we have to do this, we'll get it together and we'll figure it out. Or if you want to take a break for the summer, that might be in the cards too. We'll see. Spencer needs a vacation. Okay, so let's do this. Let's take this full moon through the houses, and I'll try to do my best to break it down for you via your rising sign. Okay, and then we'll go about our business. So many great chats and discussions. I really enjoy interacting with you. This is one of my things that I really love about this channel and this format is the interaction that we get to have. Yeah, Kelly says I vote Secrets. It's a cool book. It's a really cool book. Although don't sleep on primary directions, friends. It is a super powerful technique that I have been using more in client work that is pretty cool. But again, yeah, the Secrets of the Rider-Waite Tarot is something that's on my list that I would like to read with a group. Jeannie is asking, does the fixed star on Sag 2nd, the one Michael Jordan has, does it need a goal that stems from one's own authority, or will otherworldly goal do? Okay, so Jeannie, Michael Jordan is a Cancer rising with the moon at 10 degrees of Sagittarius on Antares, which is a royal fixed star, right? Does it need a goal that stems from one's own authority, or will an otherworldly goal do? I think if you apply it to something that is spiritual, that can work. It doesn't have to be a physical goal. I think if that's what you're asking. It doesn't necessarily also have to be like you are a leader necessarily. I don't know if Sagittarius is fixated on being like the boss or the leadership. It's more about authenticity and truth. And that can definitely be a spiritual passion or something of that nature. I will also point out that part of Michael Jordan's appeal, and I just watched this movie called Air on Amazon Prime or Apple TV. I can't remember what the hell. There's so many stupid streaming services now. that talked about him getting signed by Nike in a shoe deal. And if you're into that kind of thing, you'll probably find it interesting. But my partner sat that one out. She's like, I'm not going to watch a 2-hour commercial for Nike. But it was Matt Damon and, like, you know, who's the other guy that he's always with? Ben Affleck. And it had its moments, but you have to be a super uber basketball slash shoe fan if you're gonna watch that movie. But my point being is that Michael was special, and he also, part of the otherworldly quality that Michael Jordan had was having Jupiter on the midheaven in the 9th house in Pisces. It doesn't get much more like otherworldly, like projection of larger than life than that. So not only did he have his ascendant ruler on Antares, he had Jupiter and Pisces on the midheaven in the 9th house. Like, man, that guy, he had a crazy, interesting chart. He had some other challenges in his chart too. He had Sun in Aquarius, and he had some other stuff in his chart that led to some very difficult experiences. Like his father was murdered. He had a serious gambling challenge that he went through. He actually left the sport that he was the best in the world, or the best ever at, and played baseball for 2 years, and then returned to the sport and won 3 more championships. It's a crazy story. But yes, I hope that answers your question, Jeannie. It does not necessarily have to be a physical goal or an authoritative goal. It can be a spiritual goal, yes. Beth says the best time to remove turf, year up grass, is after the last frost. The soil is soft and crumbly and sweet. I like to think I'm helping the bugs escape, and after a few warm days, the roots start to wake. Yeah, I've been looking into how to do that. There's a lot of turf that needs to be removed in my yard, Beth, and I actually found a tiller that someone was trying to get rid of that I need to fix up, and that might be something for next year. I'm trying to pace myself. Dimphy is asking which book on primary directions. I believe the author is Martin Ganston. I saw Nathan Craddock do a talk on that book, and I thought it was interesting. I will admit I have not engaged with the book yet. I have so many books that I've ordered that part of the reason I do the book club sometimes is to force myself to engage with it in the way that I need to, due to having an accountability to do it, right? Oftentimes we prepare differently, we read differently, we take notes differently when we feel we have a responsibility to an audience to teach it to them. So I put myself in situations like that so that I know that I have to engage with this and know it inside and out to be able to teach it and share it and guide others through it. So, you know, this is why I love doing this with people, this guided group study. They're really just like little mini master classes, and sometimes there's a little element of some group sharing, and we look at each other's charts, and we really try to teach the concepts of the book through our charts as well. It's been a really nice group this semester. I'm really happy with how it's going. Jeannie says, I love sports, baseball, nerd rather than basketball, but that movie was on my radar too. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, it has moments, Jeannie. It has moments. It was pretty good. I thought that Ben Affleck and what's his name, Matt Damon, you know, had a nice chemistry and did a good job. It also has Jason Bateman in it, who I really like. I really like Jason Bateman. He's a Leo rising, Capricorn sun. I just like his energy. I'll watch pretty much anything that he's in. Okay, let's start looking at this through the houses. What do you say? Let me grab my... We are doing so well here today, friends. I think we're going to get in about, maybe, depending on how long I go with this, maybe the 2.5 hour mark. And I don't mind the marathon sessions. But I think that today I'm trying to conserve a little bit of energy for the end of the day. And when we go for 4 hours, it's just completely just blasts me out, and I'm pretty much done on doing anything else for the rest of the day. Okay. I also have to go pick up my partner from work because the car is still not, we haven't figured out the car thing yet. So here we have Aries rising. And Aries rising, excuse me for a second. Thanks, Beth. Thanks for, you got the Saturnian limits clock in your head. I love it. Yeah, Nanda Devi says the group study is awesome. Can't recommend it enough. Yeah, and Nanda Devi is an amazing contributor. She's been, I think, in all of them that we've done so far, at least the last two, and has a lot of great thoughts and contributions. And just really excited to have such smart people sharing that as well. Yeah, Beth, you did miss a great book. It was. I know you're going through stuff right now. Says Beth says I'm sad I missed this book. It sounds so great. You would have loved this one, Beth, and I totally understand that you're going through your own super challenging transition right now. But man, pick it up, and it'll be there for you. All right, Aries rising. So this full moon is happening in your 3rd and 9th house. So what we'll do is we'll kind of just look at where some of the concentrated energy is, where some of the real challenges are. There's so many things I could circle. And we'll kind of figure out the deal here. So some tension between your daily habits and routines, a learning process versus your belief systems, something where you're going to have to unify, maybe to take a trip or something, a long distance journey versus a short distance one. There may be a desire or a need for solitude, Aries rising, where you are really struggling with, meeting the needs of the social requirements that are coming up for you. And that Saturn in the 12th house is probably making it very difficult to really feel relaxed with the sociability. There's probably a lot of financial questions that are coming up with Jupiter and Mercury and the North Node and Uranus all hanging out in your 2nd house. And it's important to stay true to your beliefs, stay true to your guiding light, Aries rising. You've got Mars right now in your 5th house, so there's a lot of energy probably being directed either towards some of your own creative energy, or there might be some challenges with, like, people that rely on you, like children or something like that, where there could be some conflicts that are coming up. Take solace in the fact that Venus is about to move into the 5th and about to kind of start helping Mars out and in that big T-square that you were going through. So you get some relief from Venus, although there will start to be some tension with Venus moving into a T-square with Pluto and Jupiter. So just be careful with overspending. If you have kids, try not to spend too much money on them. Help them learn how to take care of themselves, because you might need some of these resources for yourself moving forward as well. It's good time to make plans of how to support yourself, right? Keep some of that energy for yourself. Okay. Let's go to Taurus rising. I'm just looking in on the chat here. I'll look at the chat after each rising sign here. Nanda Devi says it's easy to be active with such a great group of people to support and exchange with. Yeah, and they are supportive. Yeah. Well, yeah, to support. Yeah, I mean, we're all supporting each other in that group. I mean, I think that's the thing. Like, there's some serious things that come up that we're dealing with, that a lot of themes with this book in particular that we've been talking about are really intense themes. A lot of questioning of social systems and how do we work in a modern society? How do we change the mythological narratives that shape our lives? Those are heavy themes, and emotions come up during that as well. And consider, when we are doing these books, we're all living the current astrology together too. So if the last few weeks have been challenging, imagine going through that with a group and like discussing that and all of those things as well. So that's also part of the story. Tim V says, oh, yeah, over here it is 10 to 9 at night. Won't be able to do a lot more. Pace myself and look into Entars. Well, Dimfy, thank you for joining us for the amount that you were able to do. Sorry, European friends, for not being able to go a little earlier here, but yeah, catch it on the replay, and check in with your rising sign, Dimphy, and good luck with your garden. All right, Taurus risings. Talking to you, Beth. Like, I know we have a few other Taurus risings. Beth, my friend Monique. My friend Monique's at Norwalk right now, having her first conference experience, and I hope that she's doing well. And she's getting a peek behind the curtain of Astro land. It can be a little overwhelming, I imagine. I was overwhelmed at my first conference, which was UAC, United Astrology Conference, which is literally the biggest astrology conference in the world. So of course it was overwhelming. But if you ever go to one of those things, just realize you just can't do everything, and just try to do as much as you can, and try to create a few quality interactions with people rather than feeling like you have to meet every single person that's there. That was my approach, and that put me in a good position moving forward to just making some really great lifelong friends. Okay, Taurus rising, you have this lunation, this full moon, in your second house and your eighth house. So you're probably seeing a lot of options and splitting of attention in the way that you support yourself and with your own resources. You've got a huge stellium in Taurus in your first house with Jupiter, Mercury, and Uranus, and the North Node really challenging you to expand your own sense of self, your own ability to support yourself, your own center, your own peace of mind. There could be something that's coming to a head around your sharing of resources, like things that you own with somebody else. So you're going to have to have courage and unify in a way that will help you to get over the hump with the eighth house issues. All right, as far as like joint resources and things like that. You may have to have some tough conversations with a partner as far as who has what and who gets what. Especially with Mars moving through your fourth house as well, there could be some changes in your living situation, or some conflicts potentially as well. But Venus is coming to your fourth house to start maybe, hopefully, smoothing the waters over. Just another thing to think about is that Venus moving into Leo, it's going to be in Leo for much longer than normal because of Venus's retrograde starting on July 22nd. And then it doesn't move forward again until like September 3rd or 4th. Some of the things that you are trying to bring into harmony and bring together will be up for review later on in the year. So pay attention to wherever that Leo house is, friends, and recognize that there may be some things that you have to revisit. And also that there may be some hills that you want to not die on, right? That third decan of Leo, where Venus is stationing retrograde, it's all about which hill do you want to die on. And I've had to learn this the hard way, being a Leo 3 rising sign, is there's some that I just need to let go. There's other things that are worth fighting for. And there are other things where it just isn't worth it. All right, take care, Dimphy. We'll see you the next time. Okay, so that is Taurus rising. And just briefly too, Saturn in the 11th could be, there's either endings with friendships or where there's some reevaluation of the groups that you're a part of. You know, I'm only imagining our friend Beth, who's going through a life transition with her divorce and moving, and sometimes when you end a marriage, you have to like deal with which of your friends can you still be friends with? If, you know, that is a question that comes up. What community is going to support you now? If you had friends that were either mutual friends or friends that were mostly through your significant other, that could be something that could be a question on our minds as well with Saturn in the 11th house. If you're going through the shifts and the changes and the challenges of change. So hang in there, Taurus risings. You've been going through a lot lately, or all these Taurus friends with Uranus and all this and that. But really, if you shake up the routine and you flow with the changes, I think that you'll find that life will catch you and will support you. Okay, let's talk about Gemini rising. So Gemini rising, excuse me. Gemini rising is our first angular full moon for this particular lunation. And as I've been speaking towards, whenever there's a full moon in your angular house, 1st, 7th, 4th, or 10th, you're probably going to feel it a little bit more personally. So Gemini risings are naturally explorers. They're naturally people that have a lot of thoughts about things and maybe have some anxieties about different options and being able to explore the world mentally. And they may be attracted to partners that help them to unify those ideas into something achievable, that learn through experience rather than through maybe more rational self. And so there might be some tension between your desire for novelty, your desire for exploration, and the need really to bring something together with a partner and to unify maybe together towards a common goal. Saturn is in your 10th house, bringing you a lot of responsibilities and changes and internal reevaluations of the mythologies that shape your life and your career in particular, and in the way that you present to the world. So that could also be a limiting factor and feel a little bit heavy. Anytime Saturn's in an angular house, that feels extra heavy too. Gemini risings are asking themselves, well, who do I want to be in the world? And is this really serving me or isn't it? So there's a lot of that going on. You also have a stack up in the 12th house in Taurus. So there's a real need for solitude, a real need to explore just relaxation, getting away from the world, not pushing yourself too hard. That's one of the things that Gemini people tend to do, and both Gemini and Sagittarius. Sagittarius will push their bodies to the limits. Geminis will push their minds to the limits, and both of those things can lead to burnout. So I think that both Gemini and Sag risings, need to pace themselves, and Gemini risings in particular need to kind of go with the flow at this lunation. Be flexible. If someone has a good idea, a partner has a good idea about how to achieve a goal, maybe put some of the other projects on the back burner for now. Allow life to guide you. I think that's what the saving grace is with all those 12th house planets, is how do you surrender to what life is trying to teach you right now. And if you're having a conflict with a sibling or something with Mars in the 3rd, Venus is coming to try to help. But there may be something up for review, or a neighbor, or an extended family member, or something of that nature. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Here is, actually, where did it go? Where did our Cancer risings go? There it is. There's one more. Okay. So Cancer rising. I'm just looking at the chat here. Prudence says, Gemini rising, trying to learn pacing and practice radical acceptance. Very tired. Yeah, that's not easy. It's not easy for anyone to practice radical acceptance, to be honest, but especially difficult if you have Gemini placements where sort of the monkey mind keeps, barking away in the background. Like that's tough. I experienced this with a Venus in Gemini sometimes, and with other I have Virgo placements also. I think that all Mercury ruled planets and signs sometimes will have difficulty quieting the mind. Virgo tends to worry about the future and whether they've done something correctly, and Gemini is worried that they're going to miss out on something if they make a choice, and that's it's I don't know, but it's I don't know, it's life. It's life. But anyway, hang in there, Prudence. You got this. So Cancer rising. Cancer rising. This is fascinating. This is a 12th house, 6th house full moon. And You may be feeling pretty tired, Cancer rising. You've had a lot going on this year with you know, your 10th house ruler Mars was in your first for a period of time. That's probably exhausting. You just went through some domestic challenges and separations potentially. Um, you had eclipses over your 10th and 4th. I'm sorry, that you will have coming over your 10th and 4th house with the nodes moving. Um, you got Venus in the first right now, which is positive. I think that this there is a pull towards wanting to retreat, but there is some hard work ahead of you, Cancer rising. With the full moon in the 6th house, there's probably going to be some tasks that you don't really want to do, but you have to pull it together to get it done. And the moon is the ruler of your ascendant, so this is again, this is like Michael Jordan's chart, right? Cancer rising, moon in the second decan of Sagittarius. So think about how hard MJ worked to win those 6 championships. He did not take no for an answer. So if you are a Cancer rising, it's important for you now to really unify body, heart, and mind to achieve some particular goal. And this could be a very personal goal to you since it's the ruler of your first house. Now, Saturn in your 9th is causing you to question your beliefs, question the way that you shaped your life around your belief system. And that could feel a little overwhelming, right? Like where sometimes we have a lack of faith with Saturn in the 9th house, or our faith is being restructured on some level. So be gentle with yourself during that process. There's a stellium in your 11th house. Lean on your friends. Like this is a great time for Cancer risings to lean on their support system, lean on their community that they, have built up, right? You have Venus in your first house right now. Your friends are coming to your aid. Like that is something to keep in mind is if you're going through a difficult transition, Cancer rising, you've built up these friendships by being kind, by having a supportive community, hopefully, depending on other factors in your chart. But now's the time to expand that and to expand the way that you maybe ask for help. A lot of times it's hard to ask for help, but really asking the questions about feeling supported from your group and your community may help you get through this period of time. But again, don't push yourself too hard because with the sun in the 12th house, your energy is already feeling, it's already waning, right? And if you try to work and push your body too hard, you could end up having an injury or an illness that will knock you out. So just, again, pace yourself. And thank you, Jeannie, for the super sticker. I love this noob. What was it? Am I a noob? It's funny. I don't. And I remember there's this quote. Like, I don't know if that means what you think it means. It's funny. I love this little controller face. It's fun. It's a little like Nintendo controller. It's funny. So that is Cancer rising. I'm going to look through the chat here. Steven's back. Nice to see you, Steven. Robert's a Cancer rising, so hopefully that some of that resonated with you, Robert. Let us know in the chat if you've been going through some challenging experiences where you felt a desire to just retreat, but there's something that's pulling you into some hard work lately. And maybe some financial questions as well. But Venus is coming to hopefully support you in that. I always love hearing people's lived experience of this. Oh, Stephen, you're fun. Stephen says, I just wanted to share that 14 years ago today, a memory on my Facebook came up when I swam with dolphins. Well, that's nice, Stephen. That's a fun memory. I have not swam with dolphins, but I did get to pet one at like this thing in Florida a long time ago when I was like, I think I was something like 11 years old. My mom used to spend some time in the Florida Keys and we went down and I got to pet a dolphin. It was kind of fun. In hindsight, I question how those animals, the quality of their life, but I think a lot of them are probably injured. So they need to be taken care of, I think. All right, Silent Space, take care, friend. Good to see you. Tarya T is a Cancer rising. Hopefully it resonated with you. And Robert says, thank you, advice well taken on the Cancer rising front. I'm good. I'm glad that it resonated, Robert. Ellis J says, may I ask what aspects mean hard work for the crabs? Are you a Cancer rising, Ellis J? I would say that you've had Mars going through your first house. I mean, this is something that always like challenges us to work and to deal with conflicts that come up. But as far as the hard work aspects, I'm connecting that with the sixth house, the full moon in the sixth house, where sixth house is oftentimes work that we need to do to bring something to completion that we don't feel like we get a lot of credit for, where we may be feeling like we're, in servitude to something as well. In the ancient astrology, the sixth house was associated with slaves and like with, dealing with those types of relationships. We've changed it due to our modern sensibilities and our modern abilities, but I think oftentimes when people have placements in the sixth house, it could feel like we are bound to something in our life that feels overwhelming, but it requires a lot of work to move through. Remember, the sixth house is also the house of injury and illness, so be careful of pushing yourself too hard. The sixth house also is the cadent house related to the seventh that is pulling us away from a sense of completion. So it may feel like you're just not able to bring something to completion that you like right now, but it will eventually. It will happen in time. Okay. Robert says, desire to retreat and real need to get out there. It's a 10th house perfection year. Big transitions and imminent, but hard to bring along. Patience. Yes, patience is the key, Robert. And fall back on your self-care. Fall back on your ability to utilize your nurturing of not only yourself but others, and that's a real benefit for Cancer risings. Don't forget to nurture yourself in those circumstances. And I think that's good advice for this full moon. Is don't cut yourself out of the picture when you're taking care of other people. Robert says it's a relief to have Mars out of Cancer. It was a relief to have Mars out of Gemini. I mean, it's sometimes just a relief to have Mars somewhere else. When we have Mars moving through something, we're always dealing with some kind of problem. And sometimes it's nice to just deal with a different problem after months or weeks of dealing with the same problem. Okay. Jeannie says, I don't even know what a noob is. English is my second language. Thank you for reminding me. I guess noob is me. Jeannie, where are you from again? Is it Seoul? Are you the one from Korea? And you are doing great with English, by the way, friend. All of the friends here who may not speak English as a first language are amazing, and I have so much appreciation and admiration for those of you who are coming here and participating in a language that may not be as comfortable as your native language. That is so brave and amazing. So I'm not making fun of you. Sometimes there's little things that come up that are funny. A noob is someone who is like a beginner, and it's like a gamer term, I think, on some level, where you sometimes you're like, oh, look at this noob that doesn't know what they're doing, kind of thing. It's a funny term in English. It's a weird word that it's not super common amongst adults. It's more common amongst teenagers, which is kind of funny. But yes, I appreciate your super sticker either way, and I don't really care what is on it. Thank you so much for the contribution. Oh boy. All right, Jeannie. Well, I can't believe you joined us at the wee hours of the day. Taking off, it's 4:10 a.m. Should be sleeping, but I'm wanting to participate live. We'll be dozing off listening to the remaining of the show. Have a good rest of the day. Well, thank you so much, Jeannie. I appreciate you, and yeah, have a good one. Have a good full moon, friend. Okay, let's go to Leo rising. All right, and I'll just take an opportunity to look through the chat here. Do. Just reading, just pausing to assess what's going on in the chat. LSJ says, moderating the workload, not the easiest thing with nodal activity, in my opinion, though Mars leaving Cancer has been nice. Yeah, if you're Cancer rising, you're probably celebrating Mars moving out of Cancer. That's not an easy place. It's a difficult place for Mars. And yeah, even though Mars in Leo is bringing its own challenges, it's a little bit more of a consistent challenge than an unpredictable challenge. One of the things I've learned about Mars being in its fall or detriment in Hellenistic astrology is that a malefic planet will act, the ancient authors said that a malefic planet will act a little bit less predictably when it does not have dignity. And that's challenging when we have a planet like Mars, which brings us injuries, illnesses, accidents, separations. When we get surprised by those things and they come out of the blue, that's where it's a problem, right? And that's when it can be really disruptive. And Mars being in the place of domestic energies can be really not only shocking, but can be very make us uncomfortable. Yes, people are saying noob is newbie. Yes, it's a kind of a spin-off on the newbie. Yes, a new person, new to the party, or a beginner. And it's not I don't think it's necessarily a derogative term either. Like sometimes you can claim being a noob, and oftentimes we have to be noobs to get where we want to go, right? We have to have the beginner's mind, and I think that's something that we need to have more of. Lisa says, what a nice group of people we have here. I agree, Lisa. It is a nice group. Jeannie says, yes, I'm a Korean native. The super sticker doesn't have a large range, so noob it was this time. Well, Jeannie, you are so very welcome here, and it is so appreciated, your contribution, both in the chat and your donation, and I'm so grateful that you're choosing to, lose sleep even to participate live. So what an honor it is to be that for you and to be your guide here today and for your contributions. So thank you. Okay, let's talk Leo rising. You ready, Leo risings? I'm ready. So Leo rising. This is me and a few other friends. And other Leo risings. And Tina Turner, who just passed. Oh my goodness, Tina. So Leo rising, you have the moon in the 5th and the sun in the 11th. And you are having a big stellium in your 10th house. There's a lot of expansion going on in your 10th. You've got Saturn hanging out in the 8th in that overcoming square to the sun in the 11th. Mars has just moved into your 1st house. You might be feeling a little spicy, like Leo risings. I think I've been doing a decent job managing my anger lately, and because I've given it a job. We talked about this last week, but giving your energy, willpower, anger a job to do is important. Like I said, I got a bit of a negative comment, like one negative comment out of like a million positive comments. So, but I was pretty frustrated with that, and it is painful when you receive criticism, and I had to find ways to healthily manage my anger around that. I will tell you this: if you leave a negative comment that does not contribute to the sanctity of our group, I will delete it and I will boot you from the chat. So that's kind of the promise I will make to you, that this will be continue to be a safe space. And if you're just going to be an asshole, you don't have a place here, and you should just move on, and you don't have to consume this content. You can go somewhere else. So that's sort of my like mother bear type of warning for folks like that. But at the end of the day, if you're nice to people and you have something to contribute, you're welcome here. And I believe in second chances too. So if you were somebody who was kind of a dick to me and you want to be nice now, I forgive you. But just don't do it again. Like, that's what I'll say. So there's Mars. There's an example of Mars in the first house, Leo risings, where you're kind of like, feeling your martial feelings and feeling your martial energy, getting an opposition from Pluto, maybe making thinly veiled threats. Like there's some challenges around having Mars in the first house. And I think that everybody is sensitive when we have Mars in the first. Leo risings in particular, at the end of the day, they do want to make people happy and they want to be liked. Okay. What I've been trying to tell my Leo rising friends and Leo placements, though, is that not everyone is going to like you and not everyone is going to vibe with you. And that is totally okay. And at the end of the day, you don't need to change who you are so that people like you. If you you can just be yourself, and if people don't like you, that you can just let them go and let them go on to an experience that is more in alignment with their values and what they are looking for. Again, the internet is a place where it's difficult to deal with that sometimes, because oftentimes the people that are the most cruel on this platform are the ones that hide behind anonymity, because you don't have to look someone in the face and say it to them to their face and see the emotional reaction that plays out on their face. And I understand that. And it's very easy to be a jerk on the internet. And I hope that we will model that it doesn't have to be that way. Again, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. This show is not everyone's cup of tea. So I ask you to just move on if it isn't, without having to be cruel about it, right? I'll be nice to you if you'd be nice to me. Treat people the way they want to be treated, right? That was something I saw today that was interesting. Is someone was saying like, oh, there's this thing that talks about treat people the way you want to be treated. And she was like, maybe think about it in a different way. Treat people the way they want to be treated. And the way I want to be treated is with kindness. And so I will try to model that. And if you want to treat people with hatred and criticism, again, if it's valid criticism, if it's for astrological purposes rather than personal attacks, I can hear that. But personal attacks will not be tolerated on this channel whatsoever. Okay. Thank you, Beth. I appreciate you. You're so awesome. So Leo rising, that is, again, there is another kind of like, you've got Mars in your first house right now. I have Mars in my first house right now. Thank you, Modern Goldilocks, for your super sticker as well. Like, I don't know, Leo rising at this full moon, just be careful with your anger. Like, you have to be careful that you find ways to healthily do that, because you're probably a little tired of being fucked with. Like, I think that's the thing. And sometimes we are not nice, and we sometimes we are not the most centered when people keep antagonizing us. But again, healthy boundaries put in place, finding a healthy outlet for your martial anger, recognizing that there are a lot of different ways, Sun in Gemini in the 11th, for people to express. If you're a Leo rising, you're probably friends with a lot of different people, right? A lot of different types of people that have different opinions, that have different life experiences. And that's part of the amazing part of being a Leo rising, is you get to have a lot of different experiences with people from different viewpoints in the world. And I love that about this channel. Again, if you follow the basic rules of kindness here, and I can speak with you, right? So this is a thing where you have to kind of like think about, okay, you're going to be focusing on more group experiences. There's going to be a lot of different viewpoints. You may, as a Leo rising, have to start expressing what is important to you, right? Your value system, maybe with a full moon in the 5th house. Okay, what are you willing to accept and what you are not willing to accept? You're also, maybe there's some creative expressions that could come to the fore. There may be a creative project that you're dealing with. I know for me, as a Leo rising, having a flat, I think I ordered like 50 plugs of native pollinator plants. There's something that's coming to a head with a creative project. It's something that I'm doing for me. It's not necessarily for the group, although it does benefit the bees. This project of putting plants in my yard is purely for my own enjoyment. So I can see, like, as this moon is coming full, I'm going to have a peak experience of like, wow, look at all these plants that are coming, right? And this is something where, you know, it's just, I love it. And I think I'm going to feel really amazing. But on the flip side, I'm going to have to be careful with my body, right? I don't want to overdo it, trying to dig up the yard and planting everything in one day. You know, you'll have Venus Leo rising in your 12th house, where it's been a little bit easier lately to get peace and solitude since Mars has moved out. I've experienced that in my own life, where there was some circumstances in my life where it was really difficult for me to get some peace, but that since has changed, and I've been experiencing a better experience with that. You may have some challenges, Leo rising, with the shared spaces and resources with Saturn. You're having to reevaluate some of those things. We're going through a transition in our living space with the people that we share the home with. So there's that has been something I've experienced with Saturn in the 8th house. And then there's a huge stellium, Leo rising, with Jupiter, Mercury, and Uranus and the North Node. It's time to kind of make plans to put yourself out there more and to expand what you're doing professionally. I will say, from my own experience, I have a lot of instincts towards retreating and towards, really pacing myself with my professional things. But I can feel potential energy just from talking with all of you here. I have some plans that are kicking around in my mind. If you're a Leo rising, it's a good time to expand what you're doing professionally. You got Jupiter there hanging out, but take it one day at a time. You don't have to do everything at once, but really do think about how you can change your offerings so that you can benefit materially or otherwise, or expand what you're doing. Okay, so that's Leo rising. Make sense? All right. Steven says Mars in the 9th house right now. Yeah, spicy. The spicy hour. Oh, man. And I'll tell you, sometimes at the end of these things, folks, I just get a little tired and like my energy starts to wane, because it is a lot of mental energy to like go through all this. This is part of the reason I need to keep myself with some blood sugar stuff is, I don't know. I try to eat a big meal before I do these things, so I have endurance. Robert says, theoretical question, what is Mars' challenge in Leo in the first decan? There's no dignity there. Overheating, being too visible and perceived, an aggressive atmosphere equals extreme vulnerability. Yes, that's a great observation, Robert. That first decan is 5 of Wands, where we're competing for the spotlight. And you may feel forced into the spotlight if you have Mars there. You may feel excessively competitive, right? Where you're saying, oh, I've got to compete for people's attention. I think that first decan also is it's a Saturn decan. So there is this like pressure to perform. And Mars may accelerate like the pressure to perform when it's in that particular decan. And that can be really uncomfortable. Definitely overheating. Mars in a fire sign, like getting too spicy, getting too exposed, right? So watching the way that you present publicly and things like that, that also can be a challenge. Jennifer DeRocher is here. Hello, Jennifer. Says, my dad's a Sag rising in the hospital. Oh, I'm sorry, friend. Well, sending good vibes to your dad. I hope that he's doing okay. Modern Goldilocks says, I'm new here. I found you through Nightlight. Thank you for your vulnerability and humility. Love the way you break down the transits. Well, welcome, friend. It's always nice to see new faces, and I'm so appreciative that you've found us through Adam's work. And there's a lot of Nightlight alums here, so I appreciate that. And we should have another Astrology of Sports podcast coming out soon. I know Adam's at Norwalk right now, so we're still working through scheduling with that, but we need to make a NBA Finals prediction pretty soon. So welcome, friend, and thank you for the compliment and for the super sticker. Oh, Dimfy's asking me to put some plant photographs on my Insta. I will. I have a backlog of them right now. I could even make like a I probably could even make like a time lapse, of all the things I've been doing. I just I'll do that, Dimfy. I'll do that this weekend. Callie says, gotta run, catch the Aquarius rising in the replay. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Well, thank you, friend, and thank you for stopping by, and I will make sure to break that down in depth for you. All right, so that's Leo rising. Let's take a little break here and do a little stretch. Robert says the last sports podcast was fun. I love the sports podcast. I just love hanging out with Adam and Kip and talking sports. If you aren't unfamiliar with that, I team up with Adam Ellenboss and my friend Kip, who is another astrologer I met at the United Astrology Conference in 2018, who lives in I think is a Minnesota native, but lives out on the West Coast now. Both Vikings fans. I won't hold it against them. I'm a Packers fan. But what I do appreciate is when people stay loyal to their childhood teams, because as a Cancer person, it's just, I couldn't change loyalties even if I wanted to. I grew up on the border of Illinois and Wisconsin, and my grandparents are from Milwaukee. So when I visited them, I would just go watch the Packers, and it was just, that's who we supported. And if you know anything about the Packers in Wisconsin, it's like a religion there. I mean, Packer fans are really, really intense, and it was just something I have really fond memories of as a kid, and I just loved connecting over that and watching Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and I even remember the Randy Wright era. If you're a Packers fan, that wasn't a good era, but I was at the right age. I was about 11 or 12 years old when Brett Favre started to become a thing. So you can imagine that, a kid seeing that guy play for the first time. And he's since made some very, very questionable life choices that have been disappointing, and he's become a fallible human being rather than a mythical, legendary, godlike figure. But that happens. Oftentimes sports figures come down off their pedestal, and we figure out who they are as people rather than just as athletes. And sometimes they are great people, and sometimes they aren't. And in Brett Favre's case, he really isn't. So cheers. And Aaron Rodgers is going through a similar thing where he's just kind of completely dive bombing his reputation. But check out the Astrology of Sports on the Nightlight Astrology channel. We have about 5 or 6 episodes up there, and I have a really nice method of predicting championships with the South Node, and I plan on doing that again in the next week or two for the NBA Finals. I haven't really looked at it yet, but check that out and keep your eyes peeled for it. Okay, looking through the chat. Almost done. We're heading around the bend here. Robert says, you guys really know a lot about sports and really enjoy sports, so the discussion would be great even if you weren't astrologers. Lions fan here, concerned about Goff's chart, speculating. Oh, Robert, you've gone through it, haven't you? I appreciate that. Yeah, anytime people are just expressing their joy and something they really enjoy, that there is a beauty in that, isn't there? And this is why I can have a fun conversation with literally the lifelong rival of my favorite team, is because I just appreciate their passion, and I love that about it. And I'll tell you, Robert, Lions are looking pretty good lately. They've been turning around, friends. Like I live, 40 minutes from Detroit, and I'll tell you, bud, the Lions have a new management, and they've got a new coach who's really intense. Their coach is an Aries. He's really passionate and has really changed the culture there. And they've started amassing some talent. So the long-suffering Lions fans, I think that there's a real chance that the Lions win the division this year. I hate to say it, but as a Packers fan, but I think that their arrow is pointing up. So I think it'll be really, really interesting to see. I'm excited about this football season. The Packers have been going through a transition to a new franchise quarterback and a lot of changeover to youth, and I'm really excited to see what happens, and love watching the Lions and Packers play. I think they're playing on Thanksgiving this year. That'll be fun. And love watching the Vikings and Packers play, and Bears and all that. And like, oh boy, fun times. I love football. I love the draft. There was the news the other day that the draft is going to be in Detroit next year, which is fun. I'm thinking about going to that. But it's going to be in Green Bay in 2025. They just announced that, and I'll tell you, if you can get to that mecca of sports for the draft, that's going to be really fun. Okay. Nanda Devi says, "What about Brady's new financial commitment to the Raiders?" Oh, Nanda Devi, it's interesting, isn't it? I hate Tom Brady. Sorry, that guy's just born on third base, and he just keeps getting richer. I think the Raiders is a tough franchise. They have been mismanaged for a really, really long time, from Al Davis to now to his son, who really needs a different barber. I'm sorry to say, he just needs to let it go. Like, let it go, Mark. Is that his name, Mark? Like Mark Davis? Because whatever you're doing is not working, friend. I don't know. I think it's interesting, because especially Nanda Devi, because Jimmy Garoppolo came out, is the new quarterback they signed with the Raiders, who recently it was revealed that he had foot surgery. So he may not even be ready for the start of the regular season. So there's probably a lot of speculation like, oh, is Brady going to come back and play for the team that he owns? But I don't even think that's allowed. I think that Tom Brady's kind of a savvy businessman, and anytime you can become one of 32 or even part of one of 32 NFL franchises, NFL is just printing money right now. So honestly, it's probably a savvy business move on Tom Brady's part to be part of any franchise, even if it's one that hasn't had the most success recently, like the Raiders. But it's Las Vegas. What happens in Vegas? Who knows? I love this. We'll do a little sports diversion here. Okay. And then we'll finish up the rising signs. Laurel is here from Cape Town, South Africa. A student of Adam's just stopped by as bedtime now. Love your loving kindness and how you are sharing. I studied traditional and now found Hellenistic. Thank you. Well, welcome, Laurel. Thank you. And welcome from South Africa. That's another country that we're adding to the list here. That's very, very cool. We try. I'm not perfect. I get upset and I get defensive and frustrated sometimes, just like any other person, but just trying to recenter ourselves and create a consistent environment of kindness and appreciation for one another. I think it's becoming more and more rare in the world and on the internet in particular, and I hope that we can be a little bit of an oasis for people. And that is my pledge to you, is I will continue to try to remain as centered and as chill as I can to be able to model that. And again, just give me some grace, friends, and realize that I'm a human being too, that has feelings and emotions and all of those things too. But welcome, Laurel, and I hope that you'll join us again. Dohan says, that was me with Joe Montana. I fell in love with the 49ers and that legendary team, but was a Steelers fan from birth. Oof. Yeah, that's a conflict of interest, isn't it? Yeah, Steelers. I mean, I love the tradition that the Steelers have. I have a friend in this neighborhood here that I live in who grew up in Pittsburgh, and I've almost become a fan of the Steelers as my AFC team, because there's really not a huge conflict of interest with the Steelers and the Packers like there is with the Vikings, right? And I just love the small working class town. I mean, Pittsburgh's not as small as Green Bay, but I love talking football and Steelers, and 49ers had a lot of success in the 80s, and I loved watching those Super Bowls with Joe Montana as well. Steven's a native New Yorker. Giants and Jets, huh? Robert says, huge Alex Karras fan. I'm 69, but concerned about Goff. Yeah, I love the coach, GM, and what they've been doing, but want to see them get a good backup quarterback. Doesn't seem to be happening. Well, Robert, I don't know if you follow the NFL draft, but they just drafted this guy named Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, who is a pretty darn good quarterback. He's a little bit older than a normal rookie. He's probably about 25 years old, but he's a Capricorn. And he's recovering from an ACL injury, but when healthy, he's really good. As a Packers fan, I was a little disappointed to see Detroit draft him because I think he's going to be a good player. The Vikings also got a backup quarterback in the draft too that I think is going to be good. So keep your eyes peeled. I have some faith that Hooker is actually going to be a pretty good backup. So keep an eye on him. Jennifer DeRocher says, yes, Mars translating Mars also opposite his sun and moon translating Pluto. Hope so too, Nanda. Who are we talking about here? I missed out who we were talking about. Sorry, I'm behind in the chat here. See, now you're all getting me on a sports diversion. Like I was like, yeah, we'll get it in under 2.5 hours. No, it's not going to happen now. But these are the best types of diversions. You can get me talking music and sports and food, and I love it. I love it. Tiki Barber, whatever happened to him? The Giants running back, Steven? Isn't he like a sportscaster now? I think Tiki is him and his twin brother. They do like, what was Rondé Barber was the cornerback? I think Tiki does some kind of like, I thought he was in broadcasting, but I could be wrong. Don says, me too, regarding Brady. His luck is jealousy inspiring. Oh, Monique is here. I'm on lunch at Norwalk. What's up? Monique is my new Astro friend. So just circling back to Dawn. Yeah, Tom Brady has a Libra ascending chart, Leo sun, Venus on the midheaven. So like the ruler of his chart in Cancer, in its own triplicity, and it's got some other dignity as well, ruling his chart. He's so lucky. Not saying he's not amazingly talented and smart and good. He is. But I've witnessed a lot of games that should not have gone his way that did. And it's like, okay, let someone else win. That's my experience with him. But, whatever. Like, and I also feel like he treats his teammates a little, I don't like how he treats his teammates sometimes. And maybe that's just me seeing him throw a temper tantrum on the sideline. Maybe in reality, he actually has a good relationship with them, but he just seems a little bit entitled, kind of like a prick to me. But if you're a Brady fan, there's no arguing with his success. Like, he's the most successful NFL player ever. So he's doing fine. But an example of Brady's luck, he retires and he's immediately already has a $350 million broadcasting contract that's like in place the moment he retires. Whenever he chooses, he could go to like Fox and start collecting another check. So yeah, so it goes. Monique says, I fell in love with Brett Favre when I was like 10 watching the Super Bowl. I've been a Packer fan since. Yeah, Brett Favre. It's so disappointing that he turned out to be kind of a not a superhuman human being, right? Because he was so much fun to watch. He just had so much charisma. He had that gritty, never say die attitude. He would just pull stuff out of his butt. Like, it was so much fun watching him, and just learning more about sort of his failings as a flawed human being has been really. It just is what it is. I will always appreciate his time entertaining me as a young person playing sports. Doesn't mean I have to elevate him as anything other than a professional athlete at this point. And that's what we have to do. We have to respect our sports and athletes as athletes, and then also understand that they're human. Just like your friendly astrologers on all of these channels. Like, you shouldn't elevate your astrology teachers into deified status either, because we're just human beings also. We love helping, and we sometimes we have some knowledge that is esoteric that isn't always apparent to everyone, but at the end of the day, we're living these transits just like you. And understanding that and taking your metaphysical teachers off a pedestal is important too. I've had to learn that the hard way. So that's another reason why I try to keep this a community, where we're all contributing and things of that nature. Because yes, maybe I can be a focal point, but I want to highlight just your amazingness in this chat, also in this channel. Jennifer says, when I was young, he would take me to see Red Wings at the Olympic. Ooh, that's fun. I wish Wisconsin had a hockey team, because I just didn't have any real loyalties with hockey, but I played hockey, which is the most ironic part about it. I just liked all the teams. I was a little bit partial to the Blackhawks growing up in Chicago, when they were really good at that point. I played hockey, went to hockey camps where sometimes we'd get to meet Blackhawks players, and I sort of backhand passed with Chris Chelios for a little bit. That was cool. And I don't know if you remember Ed Belfour, and I shot pucks with Ed Belfour as a 12-year-old or 11-year-old. I got checked by Jeremy Roenick. That's one of my claim to fame as a 10 or 11-year-old child. He's a Capricorn. Like, he's a dick. I have to admit, like, nothing against you Capricorns, but he could just not stop bragging about his Porsche and stuff like that. Where Steve Larmer and Chris Chelios were super, super, super nice. Steve Larmer in particular was a really great dude. But Roenick was mad that I started a drill early or something and just leveled me. Like, he just laid me out on the ice. I was like, what is going on? Did I just get laid out by Jeremy Roenick? What's happening here? And it makes sense. I'm a Cancer sun. He's a Capricorn sun. We had some kind of karma with one another. So I just thought that was funny. That's my brush with greatness. But anyway, Carol's like, the sports diversion, Mars in your first. Yeah, I mean, this is what you get when you come here again. This is what we do. Nanda Devi says, there's something magical about going to sports events as a kid with dads and grandpas. Oh yeah, I never went to Packers games in person with my family. We watched it on TV because it was expensive. I went to one Packers game, a Packers-Bears game at Lambeau Field in 1987, when both of those teams were just complete dumpster fires, with Neil Anderson and I think Mike Tomczak or Jim Harbaugh were the quarterback for the Bears, and Randy Wright or Don Mikowski were Packer quarterbacks. And that was fun. I barely remember it, but it was fun. But I went to a lot of Brewers games with my grandfather, and that was super cool. There's nothing like sitting at a baseball game with your grandpa, getting peanuts and popcorn and hot dogs and just hanging out on a beautiful spring or summer day. It really is a beautiful experience. Man, you guys, I love that we have so many sports fans here. It's awesome. Jennifer says, got me to play hockey on the first girls' league in Plymouth. Cool. That's cool. Oh, that's awesome, Jennifer. It's exciting. In Plymouth, Michigan? That's awesome. Yeah, Monique says Brett Favre equals douche canoe. He's made some really questionable life choices recently. I have to admit, he's defrauded the taxpayers of Mississippi out of hundreds of thousands of dollars so that his daughter could have a new volleyball court at her college, and took away from people who were on welfare for that. And that's a douche move. Yeah, I will say that. Difficult. Yeah. Brady. People are hating on Tom Brady too. Okay. All right. Oh man, I love this. I'm having fun with this. I love the hockey players coming out of the woodwork here. When I was in my 30s, and our league won everything, so we got the pick of our team in the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. That's so cool. I miss hockey. I miss it. Oh yeah, I lost all my equipment in like a basement flood. Like all my equipment's super messed up. I played hockey competitively in travel hockey until I was about 16, and then between 16 and 19, I was still playing in like rec leagues, and I played in this roller hockey league at like age 19, where I was I was doing pretty good in this roller hockey league. I was scoring 5 or 6 goals a game in this competitive roller hockey league. That was super fun. Um, but yeah, it's been a while, and I really do miss it. I miss just the feeling of going fast. I was a really good skater. I was like a swan on the ice. Funny story. I I got into musical theater in my late 20s, and I was cast as the lead in a community theater production of Honk the Musical. And there's a scene where you're, talking about being this swan and turning into this beautiful bird, and the main character, the swan, me, was had to walk, would pretend like they were swimming. And I had this idea. I was like, hey, would it be? Do you think it'd be cool if I like put on my rollerblades and like swam around the stage? And they were like, "Yeah, that'd be cool." So in this production of Honk, I'm like singing this song about becoming this swan while like skating backwards and figure eights across the stage. It was super fun. But there's a freedom and a grace to hockey and skating that is just really, it's really beautiful. I miss it. Um, okay. Let's see. Dimphy says, have you done all the charts of those players for the predictions? Not yet. We'll get there. We'll get there. Don says, Red Wings forever. Finally got to see them for my 31st birthday in Atlanta. And oh man, yeah, we need to do a hockey prediction too, right? We've still got the Las Vegas Knights and the Dallas Stars, and the Florida Panthers are that team was brand new when I was coming up, and now they're just they are heading to the finals, right? And the Hurricanes, I don't follow hockey as much, but I would probably do another prediction for the Stanley Cup. Um, Again, I was using a South Node technique where I was looking at the coaches in championship games and seeing the losing coach having prominent placements, either planets in their natal chart to the transiting South Node, or the South Node transiting planets in their chart. And it's worked out pretty well so far. So I'm planning on doing that again for the coaches for basketball and hockey pretty soon. Everybody loves Chelly. Yeah, yeah. Just the story with Chelios, we were pairing up for backhand passing, and like I didn't have a partner, and there was Chelios, and it was like, he's like, I'll backhand pass with you. So I'm backhand passing with Chris Chelios as like an 11-year-old kid. That was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. All right, let's finish this up. This is awesome. Thank you for that sports diversion. I appreciate all of you. But let's keep rolling here. I gotta go pick up my partner for work really soon. So I'm gonna go a little quicker through some of this. I'm sorry, friends. So Virgo rising. Virgo rising, we're getting to another angular full moon, right? So Virgo rising, we've got the sun in the 10th, highlighting your career, the options, maybe feeling like you're spread too thin in your work right now if you're a Virgo rising. And you've got the full moon coming to a head in your 4th house. So some tension between your domestic life and your public life. And there may be something happening in your 4th house where you're really having to pull something together to achieve a domestic goal. Maybe it's a remodel, maybe it's like something where you're moving, maybe there's something going on where you're kind of seeing something come to a head in the 4th house. You have Mars in your 12th now, which is probably making it difficult to relax or sleep even. 12th house I also associate with sleep a lot of the time. So maybe there's some sleepless nights with some of these challenges that you're going through. But Venus is going to be moving there, hopefully to assist pretty soon. You've got a stellium in your 9th house in Taurus, where there's a lot of expansion with learning. Maybe you're going through a new learning process. Maybe you're going through some higher education expansions. Maybe you're pursuing a master's degree. or an advanced degree or a university degree or something like that. You also have Saturn in your 7th house, so there may be some endings happening either in relationships or with a partner, where you're reevaluating the narrative that you tell each other about your relationship, and that can put some pressure on your work life. A lot of times when we have trouble at home or when we have trouble with our partners, it can make it hard to focus at our job, and that might be something that you're going through during this time as well. So hang in there and recognize that this too shall pass. And Mercury is ruling your chart in the 1st, and it's in the 9th house. You may have to reevaluate your systems. Okay, like I know that's tough to do, and you have a method of doing things, but there's always there's always a more efficient way to do something, right? And with Saturn and Pisces, sometimes it's telling you that your method might not be the only method. Sometimes you have to surrender to the divine's plan, and that is not easy to do, but I have faith in you. Dawn, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate you. Okay. All right, so let's keep going. So that's Virgo rising. Let's go to Libra rising. I'm going to get a little drink here. So Libra rising, the full moon for you is going to be over the 9th and 3rd house axis. Now, this is, these houses are called the God and the house of God and the house of the goddess, respectively, with the 9th being the house of the God related to the sun and the house of the goddess related to the moon. And it's interesting to me that both of these planets are in their joy, the moon in the 3rd house and the sun in the 9th house. So this to me actually feels like a pretty fortuitous full moon for Libra risings in particular, especially with Venus in the 10th. Like, I think Libra risings have probably been having some good fortune recently, and there may be this stack up, this expansion of either the resources of a partner. Maybe there's an inheritance type of thing happening where your resources are expanding, or you're just having to plan for new responsibilities of either being taken care of yourself or taking care of someone else. That could be part of it also. Saturn in the 6th house, there's been some challenges or limits and boundaries around maybe a health issue. Maybe there's a chronic illness that you're having to work through right now with Saturn in your 6th house that's causing you to reevaluate how you deal with your health or an injury or an illness or something like that. And then Mars moving through your 11th house. Maybe you're trying to find a new friend group. Maybe there's been a conflict with a friend or a group of people where Venus is going to be moving into the 11th to hopefully start to alleviate some of that pressure very shortly after this full moon. Okay, so this is something where to be able to move forward with your beliefs, you may need to change up your daily habits and routines and find a new goal for your daily life rather than just like a bigger long-term goal. Okay, this is a full moon Libra rising that has to do with finding a ritual that works for you. Okay. And Nanda Devi says, my partner just got a raise. So Nanda Devi is a Libra rising. And of course, Jupiter is in her 8th. So there's an expansion. There is the astrology in action. So yes, congratulations. That's good news, isn't it? Okay. Let's talk about Scorpio rising. Scorpio rising. We've got an 8th house sun and a 2nd house moon. So this again is speaking towards how you support your others versus how you support yourself. We've got that stellium stack up in the 7th. We have Mars going through your 10th house right now, and then Saturn in your 5th. So this is something where a lot of the focus has been on shared resources, and maybe there's a lot of confusion and challenges around what is yours versus what is someone else's, and shared resources and finances. And there will be a focal point maybe on how you might be able to take care of either yourself or contribute to the equation. So don't be afraid to step out on your own and unify towards, getting out there and supporting yourself or helping to support others. Mars is in your 10th right now, so you may be feeling a lot of pressure to perform at work, right? There may be something where you are getting into conflicts with authority figures as well. And I would advise against that if you can. Sometimes it's important to separate from things, but if you're causing, conflicts in your workplace, at the end of the day, the type of thing you should be asking yourself is, how are we all contributing to the goal of our organization? And yes, you want to feel a sense of respect and things of that nature, but getting into a personality conflict rather than seeing what the actual goal is can lead to, it can lead to getting fired, to be honest. So just be real careful with Mars in the 10th house. That's the kind of aspect with a Mars opposite Pluto and squaring everything where, if you're popping off in a way that is too prideful, that can lead to separation. It can lead to an uncomfortableness in your job. Now, the good news is Venus is about to move into your 10th and start smoothing over some of those tensions. You do have the South Node in your 1st also, and the North Node in the 7th. So maybe increasing the teamwork aspect and decreasing a self-interest potentially could be part of the equation. And with the Saturn in the 5th house, some of the challenges at work could also be coming through challenges at home, like, challenges with either a child or a family member that you're taking care of, or a romantic relationship where, Saturn's going to retrograde in your 5th house, and maybe some disappointment around a romantic relationship or something of that nature, or the ways that you seek entertainment or pleasure could be making it more difficult to bring the best part of yourself to the workplace. Okay. Jennifer says, Miss Gemini rising, what houses does it fall? So 1st house Sun, 7th house Moon, Jennifer. So partnership versus self issues. And we spent some time on that earlier in the show too. So hopefully you can catch that on the replay. Nanda Devi says, this resonates with me so much. I've been looking at my daily events and seeing what I can change to find my tribe. Thanks all. Yeah, right. So just finding, some people that you are, 3rd house is also friends too, but just friends that are more personal friends rather than just, friends that you share a belief with, right? So this could be your local community, Nanda Devi, for Libra rising, right? Okay. So let's keep going. Yeah, no problem. I know it's a long show, and it's sometimes people will pop in and out, and that's okay. I'm totally used to that at this point. But in the interest of me picking up my poor carless partner, we'll have to keep going. Sagittarius rising. So here's another angular, mutable rising sign, right? For this, oof, boy. There's a lot going on for you mutable signs right now, okay? So Sag rising, you've got a lot of focus on relationships. There's a lot of choices and maybe paradoxes and being pulled in a lot of different directions with all types of partnerships, not just romantic ones, like business partnerships, all things of that nature. And something may be coming to a head where you're having to maybe speak your own truth or something of that nature, where you're having to unify your partner towards a shared goal. Okay, so maybe you have to be the one that says, okay, there's all these options, but let's pull it all together. Let's see how we can move forward with this and accomplish our highest priority. Now with Saturn in the 4th house, there's probably been some real heavy responsibilities in the family, maybe with your father or one of your parents, where you have some responsibilities with that. Or there's responsibilities with your home and domestic situation that's putting a lot of pressure on your relationships. So go easy on that. You have a stellium in the 6th house in Taurus. So this is a great time to expand the people that may be able to help you. also. I think that this is some sixth house is also related to like tradesmen and people that do contracted work for us. Like in addition to like maybe healing an injury or an illness or something like that, this also could be like saying, okay, you know what, I maybe I do need some extra help. Maybe I should hire somebody to do a job for me or something like that. All right, Monique, we'll see you later. Take care at Norwalk. Good to see you, friend. And spill the tea to me later. Oh boy, so fun. Steven says, I just made a business partnership with other spiritual beings. Well, there you go, right? So something may come to a head with this, and maybe there's ways to delegate some of your responsibilities with all that stack up in the sixth house as well. I think that having a benefic there, I think it's okay to delegate to people around you, right? Whereas when we have malefics there, sometimes we have challenges with people that we contract or we hire or we're working with. All right. Okay. So Mars has been challenging your belief systems, and maybe there was a desire to want to go traveling or something like that. But maybe there's been some real obstacles around that. Be careful if you're traveling, if you're a Sag rising around this period of time with Mars there. But Venus is coming to soften whatever is going on eventually as Venus moves into the ninth. Now, just be careful, Sag rising, because Venus is going to retrograde in Leo over the course of at the end of the summer in July. So some of the things that you believe now may be up for reevaluation moving forward. Okay, let's keep going. So that's Sag rising. Capricorn rising. I know we got a lot of Cap risings. They've been waiting so patiently. You all do it at the end of this. Someday I'll do it in reverse order. But here is the full moon over the 12th and 6th house axis. And there's a lot of focus maybe on a lot of work that you have to do right now where you're feeling overwhelmed with work. I know my beautiful partner, Tanya, Capricorn rising, is preparing for the opening of her farmer's market. The first outdoor farmer's market of the season is on June 1st, something like that, 1st or 2nd. And she's feeling a lot of stress and pressure and work with the sun in the 6th house, just managing a lot of different things to get that rolling. And I think that after the first market of the season, she'll start to feel a little bit of relief and be able to relax a little bit, hopefully. So if you are a Capricorn rising, you may have a lot of responsibilities right now is what I'm trying to say. And you might start to get some relief potentially after this full moon, okay? Now you have Saturn in the 3rd house making it even more challenging. Now, the way that's manifested in my household is that Saturn's in the 3rd house of short distance travel. Like her car basically died this week, and we have to take responsibility to either get it fixed or to get a new one. And so it's time expired. You see what I'm saying? Like the bill came due basically. So that's another thing, like where, your daily habits and routines are having to be changed or be reevaluated due to just, a chronic problem that needs to be dealt with. Saturnian issues don't just pop up overnight. They're ones that you've known about for a long time that you just finally have to deal with when it finally pops, basically. And same thing with her car or with anything that you're dealing with as a 3rd house issue. You're having a stellium in your 5th house, Cap rising, which is nice. That's Jupiter making a trine to both your ascendant and your midheaven, or your 10th house, I guess. It doesn't have to be midheaven. I know my partner's midheaven's in Scorpio, so there is definitely a place where you can see a shift. But there is some, expansion possibilities. I'm sorry. This is what happens when we get later in the show. This 5th house stellium is trined your 9th house of Virgo, not the 10th house of Libra. Sorry, I'm just not seeing the sign on the top there. So your ability to bring about creative solutions, to pursue pleasure, to expand your own, advocating for your own needs and finding joy in your own life can help alleviate some of the worries that you may have around the world, around your place within it. Just give yourself a break every once in a while, right? Like, I think that Cap risings work so hard and carry so many burdens that it's hard for them to relax. And this full moon is like, okay, you've done a lot of hard work. It's time to balance out, relaxing and finding ways to support yourself moving forward and in finding peace. Let's see. Rachel just joined. Hi, Rachel. Sag rising, moon in the first. Will this be up to watch again? It will, Rachel. It will probably be available to watch as soon as we're done live streaming, which should be within the next 20 minutes or so. So you can rewatch the Sag rising part probably as we get to the end of the show. But I'm happy that you're here right now. Jennifer says, my dad has natal Saturn in his 6th house with lots of physical and health problems. Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer. Yeah, it is chronic, chronic illnesses with Saturn. So things that have been happening for a long time, right? Okay, so that is Cap rising. Let's go to Aquarius rising. So Aquarius rising, you have the sun in the 5th and the moon in the 11th. And you're also dealing with your ascendant ruler, Saturn, in the 2nd house of money, resources. You've got Mars now angular in the 7th house, so maybe partnership conflicts. You've got this big stellium in the 4th, a lot of possibilities and expansion in the home. Maybe you're buying a new home or renovating or trying to fix some things in your house, or maybe you're expanding your family or something like that also. And you have a lot of focus on the 5th house of maybe children or seeking pleasure. But you have to be really responsible with your resources around this period of time. Aquarius rising, try not to overdo it if you're doing like a home thing, because Saturn is going to turn retrograde and it's going to say, look, you got to be responsible with your money type of thing. But Venus is going to start softening some of those relationship challenges and, helping out once it gets to the 7th house, although it is going to be going into that T-square relationship. And Aquarius rising, you've been going through an increase in your 4th house family responsibilities and a decrease in your career. So there may be some loose ends you're tying up in your career so you can prepare for that new start in your domestic situation. Raven's here. Hello, Raven. Nice to see you. How you doing? Good to see you, my friend. I'm happy you could join us today. Okay, let's keep going. So that's Aquarius rising. And of course you have Pluto hanging out in your 1st house, and that's going to, necessitate some changes. There's going to be things that are bubbling up in your psyche that have been really festering for a long time, and Pluto is going to ask you to start dealing with them. And Mars has activated that through your relationships. Jupiter's activated that through your domestic situation. But Venus is going to activate that also, the Venus-Pluto type of thing. I would recommend Aquarius rising, just try not to get involved in some power struggles, right, around this full moon with Venus, opposing Pluto, or manipulative type of things with a partner. And then, you may have to help your vision come to fruition for the sake of an altruistic, experience. Like, you're no stranger to altruism, Aquarius rising, but there may be something special going on where you're having to really pull things together to achieve a specific goal for the sake of the group. Okay, and finally, our long-suffering Pisces risings. So patient. They've just been chilling anyway, right? All right, our last angular mutable full moon. So this is happening in your 4th and 10th house. There's a lot of focus for Pisces risings on the choices ahead of you and trying to reconcile all sorts of different things in your family life, maybe with your parents, maybe with your kids, maybe with your home. Lot of choices where you could be having maybe even an issue with a neighbor or a sibling too, with Mercury in, conjoining Uranus, where you having to be innovative about fixing something that may have gone wrong in that area. You've got Saturn in your first house, so there's definitely you're feeling some pressure as far as a heaviness, maybe a slight depression potentially. But Jupiter is asking you to expand your plans, right? It's the ruler of your ascendant. It is conjoining the North Node in your third house. It says, look, you gotta, not just always just go with the flow all the time. It is admirable that you are able to surrender to a process and make adjustments and be flexible. But Jupiter in Taurus here is saying, no, it's okay to have a solidified home base. You need a container for all that water, for all that emotions. You need a cup. You need to, the Jupiter is saying, work on your cup, and then you'll have something that will allow you to transport that energy, that emotional energy, to where you want it to go, right? Rather than have it just spill all over everything all the time. You may be having some conflicts with a contractor of some sort, or someone who works for you, or maybe having an accident or an illness or a challenge like that, inflammation, something like that. Pay special attention to your heart, okay? Right? Like, try not to overstress yourself so that you get like a heart challenge or issue. And your domestic situation is making it probably challenging in your work right now too, Pisces rising. So try to balance out how you show up publicly, versus dealing with all of the things that are pulling you in multiple directions in your home. You're gonna have to keep it together at work, okay? Don't let the distractions that are happening at home and maybe with your health cause you to lose steam in your work and in your job. You still have a job to do, and I think that when you put your mind to it, when you put your heart to it, you can achieve anything. When you have faith in the process, you are a powerful manifester. So that is what I have for all of you through the houses. So as we are apt to do, we're going to finish off our show today with an I-Ching and an animal. So let's see here. Okay, we're going to finish this up. I'm so grateful for all of you and your comments and your contributions to the group here. So we talked about the dragonfly, right? I'll talk about that more in a second, but that's our animal. It was the animal for the new moon in Taurus, and I got it again for the full moon, which is interesting. But the I-Ching that I got was the hexagram number 55, which translates to zenith, fullness, splendor, plenty, being generous, acting decisively, living in the present, and making the most of the good times. So this is a hexagram that sort of feels like a full moon, that is describing a full moon with no changing lines. So this is talking about ideas coming to fruition, being present, enjoying the fullness of the moment, releasing worry about the future. We have a lot of things in our experience right now that may be, bringing us some worry about the future, financially and otherwise. But we have to be present if we want to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of us right now, okay? And I think that it is important to plan for the future to be able to sustain our abundance over time, but we shouldn't let that planning remove us from the present moment, remove us from that feeling that we can appreciate all that we have. So there is a quote with this hexagram. It says, abundance, success, the king approaches. Do not be sad. Be like the sun at midday. And that's good advice. Radiate, right? Shine your light. Be joyful and powerful and energetically generous. Try to be happy. Take care of business this time. Act. It's time to act. But embrace some optimism for the future. There's a lot of things in the news and all this that can make us feel worried about the future. But there's just moments right now in this moment, as you're listening to this, there's peace. you're with friends. You're with people that care about you and that will support you. And there's something beautiful about that moment, right? And we have to appreciate those times, even if we know that they can't always last forever. We have to try to do what we can in that moment. And there's nothing like the optimism of a Sagittarian, like there is a faith that comes through a Jupiterian type of living experience. And what I've noticed from my Sagittarian and Piscean friends and Jupiterian people who have Jupiter prominent in their chart is, what? They're just like, what? I'm just, things are going to work out. I'm just going to keep doing what I do. And, there's a higher power that has my back. And I think if we go through life like that and have faith rather than always feeling so skeptical about the future, which is a Gemini mercurial quality, a little bit is healthy. We don't want to get to the point where we're going too far in one or the other direction. We don't want to get too skeptical that we never have faith in anything. And we don't want to have so much, arrogance that we don't ask questions and we don't listen to advice from other people. So balance those two things out, take advantage of the moment, and appreciate this peak moment of splendor and zenith. And then finally, we talk about that dragonfly a little bit. It's simultaneously an insect of the water and the air. You see them around lakes a lot. So there is a balance of those two elements, water being the intuitive element and the air being the intellectual and rational one. So we are trying to balance those two things out. Dragonflies help us to give us new perspective on things. They're able to see things from a lot of different angles. They have, eyes that are multivalent. They have a lot of, I can't remember the scientific term for an insect's eyes, but they can see many different angles. Okay. We may have to get in touch with our emotions if we've been too rational. Like with Gemini, we can get hyper rational. Sometimes we can get oversaturated with our feelings and we have to bring in a little bit of common sense, rationality into the equation. So that's something that we may have to do. Dragonflies are also super territorial insects. So be careful if you're feeling a little bit territorial in an area of your life as well. And how can you create some peace around that? And finally, the dragonfly is a very solar symbol. They need light and heat. They're attracted to the sun. They're attracted to water. Okay. And I was speaking earlier about, watering my garden and seeing the rainbow that came up. That feels like a very dragonfly symbol to me, is the combination of water and sunlight creating a rainbow. So, very in a very practical way, spend some time near water. We talked about this earlier in the show. Relax a little bit. See if you can find a new vision. The combination of water and sunlight creates this beautiful rainbow, right? So, and that's a new vision that only comes from the combination of heart and mind, intuition and rationality, air and water. Air and water together, it's almost like it creates fire, right? It creates beauty. So it can create the passion that you're looking for by balancing out those two elements. And finally, I think the dragonfly, there's multiple sources that talk about the dragonfly as related to illusion, right? Because they look different in different light. And I think that this speaks to the Saturnian part of it. Saturn's asking us to get real about some of our dreams and maybe some of the illusions that we had about how things are supposed to be, while simultaneously concretizing some of our dreams into reality. So releasing the dreams that just can't carry water, right? That just can't be manifested into reality, while also simultaneously saying, this one needs to live. I need to put energy. I need to put my Sagittarian archer tensile strength into this particular one and not get distracted by all the other things happening. All right, friends, we did it. We got there. We still got we still went long, but this was a super fun live stream with all of you. Thank you so much for all of your contributions, whether it is intellectually, spiritually, materially. If you want to make a donation to the work that I'm doing, there's a $sign in the chat. It's a super sticker or super chat. If you want to do it after the fact, there's a little heart that says super thanks. You can buy me coffee at buymeacoffee.com. You can support my work by buying the Decans webinars. There's a 20% off sale of Gemini until the 21st of June. yeah, sign up for a reading if you want to, work together. I'd be more than happy to help you. My books are open right now. I do schedule a week in advance, so if you're looking on the calendar, that's why there is, the next available time is a week from whenever. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking more NBA and NHL with all of you in the near future, and football. And just try to relax. Get outside, get some sun, go relax by a body of water, listen to the sound of that babbling brook, and let those emotions go. If you need to have a good cry, have a good cry, and that's so cathartic. All right. So friends, that's what I've got for you today. Thanks again for being such a supportive community, and be kind to one another. Be kind to me, be kind to each other, and we'll try to work our way through this crazy world together. So that's what I've got. Take care, friends. Peace.